Committee to order. This is a hearing conducted by the Resource Planning Committee of the Door County Board of Supervisors. My name is Ken Fisher. I'm the chair of this committee and represent District 10, which is in the city of Sturgeon Bay. I'll have the other committee members introduce themselves.
I'm Susan Cole.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Mark Miller, District 12, Sturgeon Bay.
David Anagold, District 17, the Village of Egg Harbor and portions of the town of Egg Harbor, Bailey's Harbor, and Jackson Park.
Susan Cohout, District 7, Town of Sturgeon Bay, and the southeast corner of the town of Nassawapi.
and this is Mariah Good, the planning director, and Sue Van Langenberg, zoning administrator 2. They will serve as clerks this afternoon. The purpose of this hearing is to gather testimony on the various cases on today's agenda. You are encouraged to explain how your interests are affected, how the public is affected, and to bring out any facts pertinent to the case related to public health, safety, convenience, and general welfare. There's one type of case on today's agenda, that's a conditional use permit. In the case of in the case of a conditional use permit application, the Resource Planning Committee will hold this hearing and we will make the decision at a regular open meeting in the near future, likely later this afternoon if time allows, and I'm pretty sure it will. These decisions are normally final but may be appealed to the Door County Board of Adjustment. The procedure which we will use this afternoon in conducting these hearings is as follows. I will read the legal notice and will then call on the clerk for an explanation of the case. Resource Planning Committee members will then report any background information they have. There will be 2 rounds of testimony from those of you in attendance. The applicant will go first, followed by others in favor. Those in opposition will speak second. Persons with only questions or concerns should speak as if they are in opposition. The second round is for the purpose of rebuttal. Only those who spoke in the first round may speak in rebuttal. Because of the need to prepare a clear record of your testimony, I ask that only one person come to the table at a time. If you want to testify, please come forward, state your name and address, and then present your testimony. Statements from the back of the room and exchanges between parties will not be allowed. Speakers presenting repetitive or irrelevant testimony will be excused from the table. Following this afternoon's hearings, the committee will adjourn and convene to its regular business meeting. You may observe those proceedings but may not participate in them. Please take this opportunity to silence cell phones, pagers, and similar devices. And I believe I have done that. Yes. All right. Should we go over one before the other? Does it matter? Are most of you here for the town of Sevastopol or Bailey's Harbor?
Sevastopol. I think you've got one person here for Bailey's.
One for Bailey's Harbor. Okay, we'll take that one first to get you out of here. That's the way it's listed anyway. So. Town of Bailey's Harbor, Joseph Parent Enterprises Incorporated requests an after-the-fact conditional use permit as required by sections 2.05 sub 3A, 4.05 sub 3, and 11.04. The applicant is proposing to establish a non-metallic mining operation on the property which involves bringing materials on site from other locations within the county, creating stockpiles, and screening materials on the subject parcel. The parcel is located at 8425 and 8427 State Highway 57 in Section 17, Town 30 North, Range 28 East, and in the Light Industrial or LI zoning district. I need to ask a question. This is for a non-metallic mining operation. Since I have a non-metallic mining operation, may I still sit in on this, or do I have to?
As long as you don't have a vested financial interest in this one.
I do not. So, that being said, you may.
Excellent. So the
Proceed.
parcel is a triangular shaped lot highlighted in yellow here. It's 3.89 acres in size. And for the next portion, if we can skip to the zoning map on page 19.
It's not worth it.
Nope.
Sorry,
No, I know.
we're getting there, page 19. Just to show you again the lot highlighted in yellow. To the north and to the west, we have large areas zoned light industrial, the same as this parcel. PCI has a non-metallic mine in this location. If we go further to the north, we have an area of smaller residential lots, so small estate followed by estate. And I don't want to use the pointer on Ken's head, so.
You know what? Why don't I
He's
just,
already had
I'll tell you what, why don't I just move over here?
Not a problem.
There you
So
go.
east of Highway 57, it shows an area zoned MC here, in which there is a multiple occupancy development and residential area in the small estate zoning district. Between this triangular shaped lot and this larger light industrial patch, we do have a larger area of wetland as well. And then further to the south, about 3/4 of a mile, is the town of Bailey's Harbor. Moving forward, just to give a little background on the site, this parcel has not been authorized for any commercial and industrial land use at all. In 2014, the owner started doing a similar type use and was required to stop as that was not authorized. The applicant is now petitioning for a conditional use permit after the fact to allow for a non-metallic mining operation on the site. The site is not going to be excavated, blasted, or any crushing proposed on the site. What is being proposed is to bring material from off-site onto this property, sifting, sorting, making piles, and then material going off-site again. These types of operational uses are considered non-metallic mining according to the Door County zoning ordinance. One thing to note, the applicant did submit a reclamation type plan for when this use will no longer take place, to bring the site back to a usable or to no longer look like a non-metallic mining site. But I wanted you to know that our non-metallic reclamation ordinance that Soil and Water is in charge of does not consider this a mining operation. So they have no requirements to approve or have any authority over this site. So I just wanted to point that out. Right, the only way that there will be a requirement to reclaim the site is if the committee approves it and puts a condition that the reclamation be done. So I just wanted to point out that distinction. As I said previously, this site is zoned light industrial. The district is intended for several different uses: manufacturing, warehousing, light industrial operations, other commercial uses such as commercial storage and similar businesses. The uses shall not be detrimental to the surrounding area or to the county as a whole by reason of noise, dust, smoke, odor, traffic, physical appearance, degradation of groundwater, or nuisance factors. Such uses may be subject to requirements which reasonably ensure the compatibility. So that's under our definition of that light industrial zoning district. As always, in our staff report, we have possible conditions should the committee decide that this proposed use is appropriate at this proposed location. I'll point out the main ones. Obviously, there's typical ones we put on most of these, but perhaps setting hours of operation for both. Number one, I'm on trucks coming and going. Number two is meant to talk about perhaps setting hours of operation for the screening of material, as that may be a noisier type activity. And to give an example with other mines that have crushing activities, the ordinance does talk about nothing taking place before 6 a.m. or after 7 p.m. Number 4 and number 5 on this list, of course, 2 different pages there, are recommendations from Greg Colthurst, who reviewed the operation And those are suggested operational type conditions, talking about a rock shaker pad to avoid bringing material onto the highway, and number 5, erosion control methodology. Number 6, if the committee decides to authorize it, that is just to put in there that the reclamation plan be conditioned upon Greg's review and suggestions. Number 7, 8 are typically issued for all non-metallic mines, so I'm not going to go into detail on that. Number 10, I don't believe the applicant put a completion date, and oftentimes with conditional use permits, we do that. Otherwise, they go on for eternity, if that's the case, until that operation ceases. And then 2 other items I just wanted to point out based on the fire chief's information on the application. He suggested keeping access around the propane tank clear. And I don't know if you can see very well, it looks like a driveway around this large propane tank here. So it was recommended to keep this area clear. And I know I haven't gotten to the site here plan, but thank you for bringing it up. This is the area where the activity is proposed for screening and stockpiling and what have you. This area right here is allowed to have material stockpiled, but no screening type activity. So I just wanted to thank you, Mariah, point out this area as a condition, possibly as the fire chief thought that would be important. The last thing, the applicant says in the proposal that there will not be any crushing, excavating, or blasting. However, those are all activities that are allowed in a non-metallic mine. So you may want to condition that in fact is not allowed, but that's up to the committee. And I think that's all I have at this point in time, and I will hand it over to Mariah for planning considerations.
So the planning considerations start on page 28. Relatively simple. This property has 2 different designations on the future land use map in the county comprehensive plan. One is industrial, which a very simple explanation of what is considered or envisioned for industrial lands, which this proposal does fall into that description. As Sue pointed out, I believe parts of the parcel are designated as woodland, wetland, natural. That is because there is some wetland nearby, but none of the operations are proposed to take place in or near those areas. So as far as the comprehensive plan considerations, it is consistent with its future land use designation.
Okay, any questions?
I have one. It says after the fact.
Have they been using it for that purpose
This year, yes.
without the conditional use permit? I see. Okay, anything else? If not, would the applicant please come forward?
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Parent. I'm an engineer with Bodwin Incorporated. Our address is 312 North 5th Avenue in Sturgeon Bay, and I'm here representing Joseph Parent Enterprises. Just to give you a little bit of background, and Sue went over this, most of this stuff, but my father's operated a construction business in the town of Bailey's Harbor for many years, which included a gravel pit and quarrying operation. The company was started in the 1940s by my grandfather, and then passed on to my father a few years after that. He operated the business until about 2001, at which time he sold most of his business to Premier Concrete Incorporated, but he did retain this one parcel so that he could process a small amount of material that he would use for his continuing operations. As Sue mentioned, he does not do any blasting, excavating, or quarrying on the site, but just to do the screening and stockpiling still does require a non-metallic mining permit, and that's the reason that I'm here today. He had continued to do that operation after he sold the business. I guess just not knowing that a mining permit was required, And in the past year or so, he was notified that that was the case. So that's the reason that I'm here as an after-the-fact permit. In terms of operation, it's a very small operation. In a year's time, he probably only processes a few hundred yards, maybe 1,000 yards total. Operates maybe a few days out of a month, and it's mostly to screen gravel into stone, screen topsoil, to stockpile for projects that he's working on other sites. I did submit an operation plan and a reclamation plan to Soil and Water for their review. And I did show that we would have the shaker pads so that any material on truck tires and things like that would be removed before the vehicles enter the highway to keep dirt and mud off the highway. I'm showing silt fence or some type of erosion control on the downslope side to protect the existing pond and the wetlands. I did also include a reclamation plan. Again, there's no excavation or quarrying proposed, so the finished grade is basically what the existing grade is now. But I am proposing that the site would be covered with 4 inches of topsoil and would be seeded and stabilized when the operation completes. As far as the conditions that Sue had gone over, or potential conditions, I don't have a problem with any of those. Again, the operation is very limited, so during the week, from 7 to 4:30 is more than adequate. There would be no need to do any kind of screening during the weekend or at night. There is no intent to do any crushing on site, so a condition that says it can only be screening, no crushing, no blasting, no excavating, that's fine. See, I'm trying to think what other, we certainly, and again, I guess Soil and Water is saying that they don't really have jurisdiction over any type of reclamation, but we'd be happy to have that as a condition of approval. And I guess just in my submittal, I provided several arguments why I think the site should be approved as a non-metallic mine site. It is currently zoned as light industrial. The future land use map shows that area as being designated for industrial uses. Again, we don't plan on any excavation, crushing, or blasting to occur. The operation is limited to screening of materials. It's a continuation of a family business that's been in operation for 70 years. And Premier Concrete is immediately adjacent to the site. They do operate in a large quarry and screening operation, somewhat similar in scope, but it's many magnitudes in size larger than this. Whereas we're proposing maybe 1,000 yards of material to be processed in a year's time. They probably do that in a matter of a few days or possibly a week. So it's very small in scale compared to that operation. So with that, I guess I would answer any questions that you may have.
Good.
I have a clarification about the reclamation. Greg talks about 8 inches of subsoil.
Right.
And then 4 inches
right.
of
We did have a
topsoil above
conversation, and I told him I was fine with that, adding the subsoil to what I was proposing for finished topsoil. Yes.
That's it.
Anybody else? No?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Because you said 7 to 4. I just wanted to make sure on days and hours.
Yeah, Monday through Friday, 7 to 4:30 is fine.
Okay.
The only question I would have is, given the number of gravel pits around here that supply those materials, why would you want to do this on your own? Wouldn't it be cheaper to go and
Well,
buy and
if
have
you
it?
know my father, he would like to be in control of.
Okay, say no more, say no more. I'm not thinking of your dad, I'm thinking of who my dad was. I understand totally.
So-
Yes, yes. Okay, if there's nothing else, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use
Oh, wait a
permit?
minute.
What?
I'm sorry. We forgot to ask about completion date, which I don't know.
Oh.
Right, 'cause it's
We're talking about completion date as far as no longer doing the screening, right?
No,
Type
just
activities.
having set
Yeah.
up the operation, is usually what it is.
He's already
Right,
set up.
it's a little bit of an odd situation, because,
Well, but we don't put a completion date like on a store.
right.
And say,
it's just
they're no
set up.
longer gonna be a
That's
store,
true.
but I mean, it's just getting it going, right?
It,
What kind of completion date are you talking about? Because that had me baffled.
Well, I mean, lots of times, it's not the same thing at all, but when you do like temporary asphalt plants, or sometimes there is a mining operation where they say, you know, we're only gonna do this for 5 or 10 or whatever number of years, but in this case, I don't know if there's a plan for a completion date.
Yeah, I didn't really think about it much, but, you know, I guess I'd be open to, say, a 5-year plan with the option to come back before the committee and renew it for a second 5-year period. Would something like that be acceptable? At least then there would be a finite.
I think they just have to pick a number. I don't know.
So if they pick 5 years, 5 years comes along, everybody's still alive, everybody still wants to work. What happens after the 5 years if they
Well,
want
if
to
you
continue
pick
to
5
operate?
years as the completion date, then
Right.
Then
they're
you'd
gonna
have to
need a new
reapply.
permit.
Okay, so it's a new permit reapply. Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Or at
That's
least a
key
new
on.
hearing to talk about that condition.
But can that happen without a new fee and a new, go through everything?
No.
Well, then it needs.
So I'm not 20
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
given that it's a small family operation, can't we say,
25
give,
years.
I was gonna say 10, but I'm
10.
okay with that, and then say, unless it is sold
Well,
outside the family.
And you guys can decide whatever you want. I just
I
wanted
mean, can we,
Steve to
can we,
address the
well,
issue.
can we make it that way, that,
You can,
they
but you
can
need to
have
see
it
first
until
whether
they-
there's any other testimony in opposition too, so.
Right.
Okay.
But yeah, I think you're just gonna have to pick a number if you're gonna pick a number.
But we got his input, so we have
Yeah.
a sense of what he thinks.
okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
All right,
There we go.
thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak in favor? Anybody else wishing to speak in favor? Anybody else wishing to speak in favor? No. Anybody wishing to speak against? Yes, come forward.
Hello. My name is Penny Geithner. I own the resort directly across the street from Parent Construction there. Address is 8404 Highway 57, Bailey's Harbor. The only concern that we have is noise. I know he said that PCI is a lot larger and they're smaller, but we don't hear PCI's noise. I only hear the noise directly across the street. I got a decimal reader and just stepping outside of my door with just the sifter, it was at 72.8. It does get louder when you hear the backup beeping, the constant backup beeping, when you hear the dump truck tailgates slamming against, the dump truck. The rocks and the gravel dumping, even though they're not crushing it, it is very loud. The sifter is very loud. The backup beepers. I get a lot of customers complaining about the noise. Just this year, we've had 3,768 customers staying with us. A lot of those are, we have a 2-night minimum. Some people are there for a week to 2 weeks, and they have a cottage and they want to relax outside at their cottage, and you have this noise. So our only concern with it is the noise, and I'm hoping that if you grant the permit, that something can be done to block that noise. Currently, there's just a small row of trees in between where they work and the road, and the trees do not shield. And I do have a recording from last week, if you want to hear it. Just walked outside my door and recorded, and you can hear how loud it is. And that's just on my phone, so it doesn't really do it justice. That's really the only reason why I'm against it, is because of the noise factor. And it is an irritant to our guests, and we do get a lot of complaints.
Any questions?
I wonder, I don't know, I'm just throwing this out here, but if it were to be granted, and there is obviously some noise, are there hours that would be more prohibitive than others with regard to that noise?
Well, I can tell you 7:30 in the morning, I'm in the office at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock every morning, and usually by 7:30 every morning, it's going strong. Well, not every morning, but it's more than just a couple of days a week, month. Last week, it was every day. It's waking our guests up. I have a guest that from our property line, they're a good 100 yards back on our property, behind trees and other buildings. And I was talking to him today, and I asked him if, it was a nuisance, and he said, yeah. And he said there was a loud banging. It was like metal on metal, and it woke him up. And I said, well, I think that might be the tailgate, because that's the only thing that would make metal on metal sound in my mind. But it is waking our guests up. So we are a seasonal property. I don't know if they could work with us, and they could do as much as they want to their heart's content, November to April. We have no guests. We wouldn't have any issues. Summer months, we're so busy with all of our customers. We do have return customers, but we have a lot of customers that are brand new, and they're not going to come back because they came to Door County to relax, and they're listening to this. And, Door County is about tourism, and it's affecting our business.
Okay.
Have
Any
you-
questions?
One more. Have you been there a long time?
Bought it in 2004.
And how long have you been dealing with the noise?
Years. I really remember when they were crushing gravel. I mean, I was in my office, and you couldn't hardly hear the people talking to me when they'd walk in the door from the crushing. I'm glad that has stopped. And, the sifting is obviously not as severe, but it is loud. And, I would love it if you could just come stand right outside my office door just to experience it before you would, approve it, just to see what it is truly like. Because you cannot sit by your fire, during the day or anything like that and enjoy yourself. It's one thing having street noise. This is loud. And I do have it recorded with me if you wanted to hear it.
Is it all day?
Yes. It does stop, in the afternoon. But yeah, it starts up at 7:30 in the morning.
So how does 8 o'clock, where does 8 o'clock fit in your schedule in your business? 8 a.m.?
A lot of customers like to sleep in. They're on vacation. Most people are gone but for the day by 10 o'clock in the morning. They pack up, they go out, they see the county. But we do have a lot of cottages where people just want to relax. They just want to sit outside their cottage and enjoy nature and
Not necessarily the sounds of the city right next door.
well, the city would be better. You said you have a non-mining, you've got the backup beepers constantly, beep, beep, it's irritating. And I understand that's his business, and is there something we can do? Is there a wall, or I'm not sure what the right word is, to barricade something in between just to make it more of a sound barrier?
Well, you said 8 o'clock would work. Would 9 o'clock work?
9 o'clock would be better.
Would that be tolerable?
Um,
More tolerable than 7:30?
It would be more tolerable. I think no matter what, I'm still gonna have customers complaining because, they wanna people won't wanna, when they stay with us, they wanna stay on the quiet side. That's what 57 is known for, the quiet side of Door County. And, if it could be limited to just specific days, 1 or 2 days a week, or, in shorter hours, I don't know. I don't know how his business runs. I don't want to harm his business, but yet he's harming our business. I want to cooperate somehow.
Okay.
And you said you're closed November to April?
Yes.
So those months you wouldn't care?
I would not care at all. I wouldn't care if they crushed rock, because we're totally shut down.
She's mentioned twice that she has the recording. Do you want to hear the recording?
That's what I was gonna ask. You said it measured 72. How loud is 72?
We tested, we turned the vacuum cleaner on and walked up, we were within a foot of our vacuum cleaner to get that 72.
Oh, okay.
So it'd be like trying to have a conversation with somebody with the vacuum really loud and
All right.
so.
Okay. Go ahead, Dave.
Many resorts are, like they book from Thursday through Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Are there days of the week where you're not?
Nope.
That coming and going 2-day intervals minimum?
We ask for 2-day minimum. We do take overnight stays, if we have
Right.
availability, if it fits in between other guests. We try to be flexible. We just want to fill rooms. We're making money only 7 months out of the year and that's it. So,
I was just looking for a day that would be nice to have no noise at all, I guess is what I was saying.
mhm.
Like a Friday or a Monday or. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak against the proposal? Anybody else wishing to speak against? Okay. There were no,
Yeah, you gotta let Steve come.
I know, I'm just asking if there were no new letters either for or against it.
Correct.
Okay, then we'll go to rebuttal. Anybody, and we know who that is, that spoke in the first round may now speak in rebuttal if they so choose. You will get an opportunity also.
First of all, understand, I'm here as an engineer representing my father. I'm not at all involved in the business, so in terms of his total volume, days of operation, things like that, I'm just basing it on what he told me he was hoping for. I guess I would be open to, or I would think he would be open to relaxing those hours a little bit more rather than 7 in the morning to say 8 or 8:30 in the morning. Or 9, if, and I'll leave that, whatever you come up with, he'll have to abide by. I would ask him to do as much as he can, say November through April. The difficulty is, it's hard to make your materials during the winter months. He would certainly want access to the materials pretty much at all times in the summer, but if you were to say that he could have access to the materials Monday through Friday, but could only screen Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, maybe something like that would work. The unfortunate thing, there are mine safety rules that require backup alarms on vehicles, and to stay in compliance with them, you have to have that, and I know that they're very annoying, and that is a problem, but that's not something they can avoid. But maybe, again, limiting the actual screening operation to 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and allowing access to load or unload materials Monday through Friday, and if it's 9 to 4:30, I guess that he would have to live with that. So, and to be honest, I don't know how many more years, he's even gonna be in the business, but it's something that he needs for the immediate future, and would hope to get approval at least on a short-term basis for.
Have you been in this location for a while? I think you said
Well,
you were.
He, when the company was very young, a lot of the operation was very close to the highway. Throughout the years, as they depleted material, they kept moving further and further back. So the main operations kept moving further away into the area that PCI now operates. My understanding is that over the years, on a fairly regular basis, he has used this property since he sold it in 2001. Now the actual crushing that was done a few years ago and the screening that's done now may be more intense in the last 4 or 5 years than it was, say, 10 or 15 years ago. But I know he has used that property throughout his ownership of it.
Okay. Questions? Go ahead.
What is your reaction to the idea, if it's even possible, of doing some sort of screening.
Well, I'd be open to anything that will help. Here's pictures of, a little better picture of what the existing conditions are. There are evergreen trees there that are gonna do probably as much as anything to block the noise. Certainly adding more trees, if that would be appropriate, he'd be open to. I'm not sure how much of an improvement that might make over what's there already, though.
Even fencing really isn't gonna do anything,
Right.
with that kind of noise.
Maybe like a freeway style.
Well, I was just gonna say, like the
sign.
highway, I mean, I don't know that this is Door County, and do you really want something like that? But I just really wondered.
According to the aerial that's included in the map, or our packet, it looks like the equipment is somewhere placed in this neighborhood.
Right.
Okay. Can it be moved further back yet?
If you go to the drawing,
Wait, you want the site plan page or?
it'd
Page,
be page 2 out of
18.
4. Well,
18.
yeah,
18.
that crosshatched area,
You can see where there's a piece of equipment in the middle of the, or to
Right.
the, a little bit to the off center of the, yep.
This,
yep.
That's the crusher, or not the crusher, but the
It's
screener,
probably the
probably
screen.
where it's
Yeah,
located.
Yep, yep.
Okay. Can it be shifted further
Well,
away?
if you
to
go
help?
to the next,
The next page or? No, we may not have your application.
How did
okay,
your
Same
well,
application.
it's page, if you have the copy of the application, it's page 2 of 4 of what I submitted,
Like,
that shows the crosshatching.
Oh, yeah, page 23? Yeah,
Is that the one I
you had it up there a
had?
minute ago.
The,
Yeah.
Page 23.
the crosshatched area is the area that meets all the setbacks from the property line, highway, residential, and wetlands. So it can be placed anywhere within that. But you do see the drive there that the fire chief hoped would remain open around the
Stay away.
propane tanks. So that kind of eliminates the westerly portion, but,
here.
yeah, so you could, I mean, he could move.
You can move the screener back, but you're still gonna be stockpiling off towards the east, so you're
Right.
still gonna have your equipment, the excavators, the
Yeah.
bucket equipment beeping, going back and forth.
There's probably enough room that we could eliminate the stockpiling setback and make that the same as the manufacturing setback. You know, we'd gain some distance there, but
You see where I'm going with this?
Yep.
I'm trying to look, can we move some of this equipment further
Sure.
back and try to mitigate movement?
There is, if you wanted to look, we do have, on your reclamation plan, which is on page 25, there are contours there, and you can see that from the east side of the highway, we're at 640, and then coming down in elevation, so it's lower in elevation there. I
Right.
don't know if that berm where the stockpiling is proposed, if that will help at all, I don't know.
well, certainly distance and elevation will improve the noise. I don't know how much, but it will improve it.
And
Or
all of the
minimize
motorized
it.
equipment has the backup alarms, right?
Unfortunately, yep.
So it's not just the trucks, it's
Motor, yep.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, would you like to speak in rebuttal to, or address what he brought up? If you do, you have to come up here.
The only thing I.
You have to come up here again. Sorry.
We need you to be recorded.
Okay. The only thing I could really add is to show you, when you see our property, to show you how far back that person was that said they were woken up. So that's really the only thing I could add to it, just to show how far the sound does carry.
Oh, sorry, we don't have a good.
Actually,
No,
the
go
other
to,
picture was good.
there was another picture that you
That one?
had.
Oh, I didn't think the back had it showed up in that one.
Oh, on the plan,
Give you a feeling,
page
though.
Yeah, this one I can
24.
show you if you want me to.
You have a pointer right in front of you by the microphone.
Just that red.
Okay, right here is where the one cottage was that I was talking to this morning. So that's up a hill, there's a lot of trees in between here, there's a couple other buildings here. But yeah, right in here is the gentleman that I was speaking to this morning. So I don't know if a big old dirt pile, going the length of here, but in between them and the trees, if that would help absorb some of the sound, or I don't know.
Any questions, any comments on it?
I would only add, the trick, of course, is balancing the fact that there's a historical business on one side and a historic, I don't know how long the cottages that you bought
Actually,
are, but probably they've been there for a while, so
Actually,
it's,
Joe Parent built
yeah, so
our
it's
property.
how to find the common
that's
or
what
the
I'm
middle ground.
Thinking of.
Is what Steve proposed, I think I've got this right, where he said that they could live with, or Joe would just have to live with 9 to 4:30 Monday to Friday, and that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday would be the only day where they would do the screening and the sifting.
I think that would help.
Significant improvement.
I think that would help. If he could do with 2 days a week screening versus, anything that could help make it quieter, The backup beeping isn't real consistent. It's only when the trucks are there picking up or dropping off. But the sifting, that's like non-stop for the whole time that they're doing it.
But 9 to 4:30
That would help.
would help.
That would help.
Okay, all right. All right, anything else, Dave?
And back to my previous question, you say that it would help if you could limit the days.
Mhm.
What days?
I would say definitely Tuesday through Thursday would be better days. But if he doesn't have to sift 3 days a week. I know there are days where he's not out there at all. So.
But for you, Tuesday through Thursday works better than
That would
Monday,
be better.
Wednesday, and Thursday. Okay, anything
Or
else?
Monday, Friday.
What?
Well,
Yeah.
Tuesday through Thursday,
That,
including,
right, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday instead of Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Oh, you mean you were thinking of breaking the days?
That's what Steve suggested.
Oh, I wrote Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for screening, but he wanted to access Monday through Friday.
Access Monday through Friday. Steve, what did you say? I thought you said screening
No,
Monday,
screening-
Wednesday, and
screening
Thursday.
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Tuesday, Wednesday,
Thursday,
both your
access
times. Okay,
Monday through
okay.
Friday.
He was doing the middle of the week also.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. Okay, anything else? If not, thank you. Okay, that'll conclude, and like I said, there's no letters, so that'll conclude that. So, moving on, Town of Sevastopol, Andrew J. and Karen M. Gundrum request a conditional use permit as required by sections 2.05 sub 3 and A, 4.03 sub 3, and 11.04. The applicants are proposing to establish a winery with 118-seat tasting room and indoor-outdoor seating and a farm market within a proposed irregularly shaped 70 by 140 foot. What?
Oh.
I read that before and I
Building.
didn't catch it, but building, okay. The parcel is located at 4622 State Highway 42 in Section 15, Town 28 North, Range 26 East, and in the General Agricultural or GA zoning district.
Okay, so here we have the parcel highlighted in yellow. It's roughly over 20 acres in size. And if we could skip to the zoning map, that way we can see
What
the
page are we
zoning.
on?
39.
Next page,
Okay.
2 pages. As you can see, the parcel is zoned general ag, which we're familiar with, went through a rezoning earlier this year. Primarily, this area, Sevastopol, is zoned general agricultural, with the exception, prime agricultural. This parcel is general agricultural. And across the street to the west of Highway 42 is zoned light industrial. And then we have a small pocket of single-family residential, 20,000. In that area, there are smaller lots with some residences constructed. Otherwise, pretty much surrounding the entire parcel, we have low density and agricultural type of uses. In the light industrial blue section across the street, there are a couple of businesses within that property. As the notice had mentioned, the applicants are proposing to establish a winery of 118 seats. Some of the seating will be located outside on the patio. The remainder of the seats, which are for tasting, are located inside the building. As far as the winery is concerned, the wine tasting is supposed to be accessory to the use of winery. One thing to note, that our ordinance does not limit or have any standards with regard to what is accessory or a limit in the number of seats. Other wineries that are located in commercial districts are not limited in the number of seats and are not required.
What page are you on?
50.
Background. Are not limited in the number of seating, they're only limited by the parking that is required, and that is because in the commercial districts, bars and taverns are a permitted use, but in the general district, taverns and bars are not a permitted use. The other use that we talked about, I'm in the paragraph 2, is the farm market use, which will be partly indoors and partly outdoors. According to the ordinance, farm markets are allowed and shall principally involve the sale of farm and garden products, which are raw products, vegetables, flowers, and they do not need to come from this property, but they need to be raw materials, raw products. But the farm markets are also allowed to have a smaller portion of items for retail, t-shirts, souvenirs, jams, etc. At a 70% raw products, 30% other items. So we'll go through that in a little more detail. And we have those on page 46. Oops, changed my mind, I'm sorry. If you could go to 44. I'm going to show you the plans first. And I don't know if we'll be able to see this, but this is the floor plan for the winery. This larger section right here is the wine production, and I'm sure the applicant can give us more detail as to how and what items are used in that area. These smaller rooms here are bathrooms and storage. This is a prep area. The areas shown in gray here are for the farm products, the farm market items. And then here is the seating for the wine tasting as well as the outdoor patio. And if we could just go down another page. Exterior elevations. As the notice stated, the building is irregular in shape and is roughly 70 by 149 feet, and we'll go to the next one. So now we're getting into some of the plans submitted with regard, oh, sorry, you can go down.
You want to go down?
Yep. With regard to the farm market. So right here we have a list. They plan to sell fruits, berries, flowers, and vegetables. And then the retail items, which is the lesser amount that they can sell, is listed here. Yes?
I assume they'd be selling wine also,
Right.
because that's not listed.
That needs to be in the 30%.
That needs to be in the 30% right here.
A processed product.
Yes, correct. Going to the next page, we're going to have a floor plan just showing you in a little bit more detail. Can we slide it to the right, or to the left, I mean, so we can see the highlighting? So, I can't see the label.
I'll shrink it, but it's going to be good.
There we go. So this is just trying to illustrate where the indoor display of the farm market products are, and then the outdoor display, and then the next page breaks down approximately where they're gonna have the types of items. So the purple is displaying the farm raw produce, and the yellow is displaying the other retail type items. Moving on, as far as the zoning district, which is general agricultural, obviously it's intended for agricultural and other operations. 20-acre lot size. And, thank you. On to, if the committee decides that the proposed use in the proposed location is appropriate, we have some conditions that we'd like to point out. Completion date for the project, hours of operation, number 3. The tasting room, as mentioned before, a tavern or bar is not allowed in the general ag district, so it may be important for the committee to look at the number and size of tasting area to see if that's accessory or if there should be a limit to that, since our ordinance does not have that. I believe in the town recommendation, they talked about having access off of County P instead of the highway, so I wanted to point that out to you. Number 8 talks about there shall be no heated food or cooked or prepared, and that's because a restaurant is not allowed in the general ag district.
So what about something like a sub sandwich thing? That's not heated.
But it is prepared.
It's prepared. And then lastly, number 10, just pointing out if there is any blasting on site, does the committee want to put any conditions with regard to hours of blasting, notifications, etc.?
Go ahead, Susan.
Help me understand the parameters that the committee has to make decisions about the size, the number of clients, what did you call, seats?
So the use is winery for the production of wine. That is not limited in any way. The wine tasting is supposed to be accessory or subordinate to that principal use of winery, although we have no standards to go by.
So what do we use to decide that? Good question.
You have to determine what is accessory to the production of wine.
I think it might be in the staff report, but I can read you the definition of accessory use.
I think I missed something. You were talking about percentages for a farm market were 30-70?
Correct.
So the produce had to be 70% and the sundry items had to be 30 or less.
Correct.
But then I thought Susie brought up the point about it being a winery, or somebody brought up that they're going to sell wine, and that had to be in the sundry, the 30%. Did I hear that wrong or misunderstand it or what?
As far as display area, I don't know whether.
Because it's a winery, they would want more than 30% devoted to the wines, I would think. Of course, we can ask about that, but one would think, I would think so.
The wine, they can display the wine. It's something they're producing on site, but yeah, I may have misspoken there.
Or maybe I did.
That,
Susie had made the comment that wine was not in that 30% cat listing.
Yeah.
It wasn't anywhere on the sheet.
Right,
is what it
right.
wasn't.
So
Right.
where does the wine fit
Fit
in?
in.
That's the product of the winery, right?
right, it is.
So it shouldn't be calculated into that total square footage of displayed
Of the
area
more
for
than
the
likely,
farm
yes,
market
that's what
portion.
we-
Oh,
That's
okay,
the
okay,
difference.
okay,
Of
that's
the farm
separate.
market.
The wine is separate from the farm market.
So I misspoke then.
Okay.
I can read you the definition of accessory use, which is not terribly helpful. A use subordinate to and customarily incidental to a permitted principal use of a lot and located on the same lot as the principal use.
Subordinate
So
to.
subordinate to and customarily incidental.
Okay, so the winery would be primary, the farm market would be,
The farm market is also a separate, they
would
both
be
actually
separate,
require a conditional use
but
permit.
would be secondary.
No, the tasting room.
The tasting room.
is is what's secondary to the winery.
So the seating, which allows for people to stay at the winery and taste the wine, is what needs to be subordinate and accessory to the winery.
Okay.
So we have two different uses proposed, both requiring conditional use, winery,
And
with
farm
the
market.
tasting being accessory to the winery. And then the second use, principal use, is the farm market.
So are we dealing with one or two conditional use applications here?
It's one application, two principal uses within that
Oh,
application.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'm sorry.
And the farm market use is the 3070, and the winery is the
Just
winery
wine.
with the subordinate wine tasting piece.
Yeah. I'm gonna walk you through the comprehensive plan considerations. And this should sound familiar because I think we went over much of this when the rezoning hearing was held. But this property is shown on the county comprehensive future land use map actually as being part residential and part rural agricultural. A little over half of the property is designated as rural agricultural, with the remainder being residential. So obviously, it's up to you, I guess, to determine whether or not you think a winery is something that kind of fits that land use category. The other thing that Becky put into this report, which is due to the conflicts that were there between the town of Sevastopol plan and the county plan. When we made the county future land use maps, we just took the town future, not just Sevastopol, but all the town's future land use maps and kind of recoded them into our system. And there were some things in some areas in several of the towns which conflicted either with goals that were in the county plan or maybe even map conflicts. And in this case, the town of Sevastopol had some, they called them housing bubbles. They were kind of, there was one near commercial and residential, one near Institute, one near Valmy, and then a couple of just housing bubbles that were sort of not to be deemed as exact boundaries, but this is kind of in one of those housing bubble areas, potentially. So that's
It's
just
got
something.
the several homes and then a little subdivision to the north.
Yeah, and I don't know if maybe they envisioned that that might be roughly a neighborhood where more housing would go eventually. I guess maybe the town could speak to that. And then there's one goal in the plan that is potentially in favor of, at least, again, up to you to decide how much of the project, protecting existing agriculture and promoting sustainable agricultural operations is one of the goals in the county comprehensive plan, and supporting the preservation of small family farms and ensuring that we're not impeding new agricultural uses. So you've got kind of a lot going on.
Okay, any questions?
Yeah, residential versus rural agriculture. You talked about part of the property is one and part of the property is the other?
Yeah.
Have you showed us which is which?
I can, we will bring that up.
Somehow I didn't see that.
I don't know if that one's in the packet, that one was.
Right now for the future
I don't
I can
know.
pull up the county website.
Otherwise, we have it from the rezoning also.
I'll get it. And again, well, I'll pull up. So this is that bubble, the housing, what we're calling a housing bubble, as far as the residential piece. This is the parcel right here. It's kind of two tails.
Oh, okay.
And then the light green is the rural agricultural.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dave.
In reading the definition of a farm market, did I read it correctly? That the produce that they can sell in there has to be raw product? So you got a farm market that produces cherries, and produce cherry pies. The cherry pies are not the raw product then.
They would be part of the 30%. It's a little bit confusing because we have many places in the county that call themselves farm markets, but we call a lot of them, most of them actually, retail because they're in commercial zoning districts. So in most places, so let's say like Kepsel's, probably Grandma Tommy's actually, some of the places that you would think of as farm markets, we don't call them under the zoning ordinance farm markets, they're just retail. But yeah, if it's a true farm market in an agricultural district, then it's got that 70-30 split.
If it's a zoning definition of a farm market in an agricultural district, then it's got that split.
Yes.
Because a true farm market is precisely what I just described, making their own jams, jellies, and all that
Right.
stuff. Okay, so that helps me understand that. In at least one of the letters, they made mention of we have enough wineries in the county already. Can the two of you remind this board where that fits within our ability to make decisions? In other words, that's a personal opinion in my view of an activity that's really not germane to our ability to make decisions, correct?
Right. I mean, you don't ask applicants to bring business plans when they come in, so it's up to the applicants to obviously think that what they're proposing is a good idea. And if there's two more of them across the street, then that's, you know, their business. I guess the only place it would ever come into consideration would be maybe if there were a bunch of a certain activity all together, and then somebody else wanted to do another one, and either you or the neighborhood or the town or whoever said that's enough. We have, you know, enough of these. The example I can think of along those lines would be at some point within the last 10 years, there was an application for a non-metallic mine in the town of Sturgeon Bay, and the town and the neighbors came out in pretty full force and said, you know, we don't want this. We already have whatever the number was. Do you remember? Several within this relatively small area. We cannot have another one.
That did not prevail, though, in the decision-making, I don't think.
Well, so it got appealed, and then on appeal it did.
So even in that case, it didn't really hold up because ultimately...
It did ultimately.
Because ultimately, that's a personal opinion. I guess I'm trying to play devil's advocate here, that there are some activities that we cannot, some statements that will be made or might be made, and were made the last time, that we simply cannot use as information during our processing.
Right.
of this.
Your job is, well, if you go to the page where the suggested potential conditions are, which I'm not
We
finding.
wouldn't deal on the number, we would deal on the location.
Right, your job.
Correct.
So if you go to the top
Yes.
of page 51, if you determine, well, what you're first trying to determine is if the proposed use should go at the proposed location. And then if you think that, yes, we can put whatever the conditions are on this to make this fit this location, then you attach the conditions. So you can either approve with conditions, or deny.
But I think what David's getting at is that decision as to whether it should go there or not, there are certain criteria we can use to
Right,
determine that.
is it
And it's
knowing-
not how many wineries
We
there are,
already
or how
have.
many farm
Exactly.
markets,
Correct.
or how many
It's-
restaurants,
it's-
or whatever.
right, it's
We don't
character.
get to decide that.
No, it's character of the neighborhood.
It's not germane to our decision,
noise,
so
it's traffic, it's
try to
whatever.
mitigate that testimony, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Okay, right, yeah, it's not up to you to decide whether they have a good business model or not. It's up to you to decide whether that proposed use can be made to fit that proposed location. I don't have anything else to listen to you guys.
Any other questions?
Just a comment about reminding of repetitive information.
Yes. Okay, we'll go into the testimony part of it. So, would the applicant please come forward? And as I read earlier, it's nice if you all can speak. I have no problem with that. But if you all come up here and say 2 and 2 is 4, after a while, we get tired of hearing 2 and 2 is 4, okay? If somebody has been up here and said something, don't come up and repeat it. It should be something new, okay?
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
You can certainly come up though and say, my name is so-and-so, and I completely agree with everything that Jane said. So it's,
Right. Right, I wasn't talking about that, I was just, don't come here and give a 5-minute, talk, saying the exact same thing the person before you did for 5 minutes, okay? Yes?
Can I add more? And the fact that you came up reserves your right to speak in rebuttal. If you don't show up in the first round, you don't get to rebut anything.
Right. Okay,
Hi, my name is Karen Gundrum. I live at 308 North Joliet Avenue in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. When we met with you earlier this summer, we shared our hope to continue our vineyard and have a winery at our location. We shared our plans for this winery with the Town of Sevastopol Planning Committee at their July 6th meeting, where they voted to approve our plans for the winery. And at this time, I guess I'd like to share with you the committee's reasons for approving our plans at that time. The conditional use permit will promote the growth of viticulture and emerging and growing agricultural use and the development of necessary infrastructure to process agricultural production. The applicants have undertaken significant efforts to account aesthetic and land use considerations in the design of the proposed structure. It is believed the proposed land uses will promote the continued use of land for agriculture purposes, one of the key goals of the comprehensive plan. The Commission believes the proposal is consistent with the town's comprehensive plan. So these are the reasons that on July 6th, the Planning Commission or Planning Committee in Sevastopol approved our request to move forward with the winery. Some things have changed for us. We've had some health issues, and therefore we've had to make some changes to our plans. We'll continue to tend our vines and to grow our grapes, but we're now working with Steve and Maria from Parallel 44 to have them build and run the winery for us. So unless you have any questions for me, at this time I would like Steve and Maria to come forward and share their plans for the winery and to answer any questions you might have for them.
any questions?
I don't know, can you react in any way to concerns that neighbors have expressed? Or is that something that they should?
We should wait till that comes up in this
Okay,
testimony.
Okay.
Okay.
We had letters though.
Well, we did, yeah, we had letters.
Testimony.
But we can deal with that in rebuttal.
That's right, that's right. I have a question
Certainly.
on you said the Plan Commission in July?
July 6th, correct.
But I have a letter here from the Plan Commission. The date I've got here is October 6, 2017. The Plan Commission voted, I think it was 3-2, to deny the conditional use permit.
That is correct. We initially met with them on July 6th, and at that time, what I read to you was exactly what was in their minutes and their reasons for approval at that time.
Right, I'm just saying that's no longer the case, according to this, unless I'm wrong in
No,
reading this.
I was just sharing what we were,
Oh, okay.
I was sharing-
I got it. Right?
okay?
Actually, I do have a question.
Yep.
It's gonna sound strange. You got originally a letter, like you said, the minutes say that they approved it.
Mhm.
Then in the last one, you got a letter saying that they, deny it. You presented exactly the same case in both cases?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Any other
That's it.
questions? Okay, thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of the application?
Steve Johnson, 210 Arbor Lane, Green Bay. Also owner and operator of Parallel 44 in the town of Franklin in Kewaunee County, and Door 44 in the town of Sevastopol in Door County. And I really want to thank you for the opportunity to discuss our plan here to expand our vision in the town of Sevastopol. I just want to start out first with sort of our personal story. Both my wife and I, back in 2005, I think it was, with 3 kids under the age of 3, gave up our legal profession to start a vineyard and winery in northeast Wisconsin. And you might ask why, and it was because we really had a vision to produce world-class wine from this part of the world. So we started with our vineyard of 2.5 acres. Several years later, we opened up our winery, and we've now grown to being one of the largest estate wineries in the state of Wisconsin. We've achieved a goal of producing world-class wine, and we are producing, starting out, we started with 20,000 bottles a year, and now it's about 140,000 bottles a year. Now this led to the development of our second location, Door 44, right next to Grandma Tommy's, in 2013. And so we've been there, neighbors here in this community for the last 4 years. And it's been successful, but what we've learned really is that people really want a true experiential opportunity. That is, they want to see where the grapes are grown, where the wine is made, and make that personal connection with the product that they're enjoying. And the reality is not only do they want that experience, from a practical level, from production space, need more space for production. As you can tell from my grape stain hands, we've been dealing with over 115 tons of grapes over the last 5 weeks. I got to get back to that later today, but a third of our production in terms of our wine is coming from the Door County region. Nearly 40 tons was brought in from the Door County region this year. And so it's the next logical step for our endeavor. It's the next logical step for this industry to provide a venue like this. I think this opportunity is a great opportunity for increasing the tax base of the township, creating growth economically with creation of jobs. I think it's going to build a regional reputation that exists here. And also it's a great way to promote agritourism, agroeconomic development that fits in with the rural character of this township. So for the last 4 years, we've been the neighbors here. We are not adding another winery to this township. We're merely asking for a relocation of our current facility to the vineyard that Andy and Karen operate. And Andy and Karen approached us, and we've known them now for over 6 years. They're excellent growers, they're excellent people, and frankly, we're very honored and humbled by this opportunity to potentially expand our mission here of producing world-class wine in Northeast Wisconsin. Now, in order to make sure that this development made sense to everybody and everyone understood what was going on, we actually reapplied for this conditional use permit. I wanted to give the full story of what we're doing and answer any and all questions that people may have regarding this, so that they can understand and appreciate what our intent is with this piece of property. And I think we've done a lot, all that we can over many, many meetings now, to explain and provide that information to show you that this vineyard winery would fit in well with this community. I mean, we come today before you with the same willingness and openness to find, to show that this product is sustainable and something that fits in well with the rural character of this township. Now, I know prior meetings and discussions have sort of centered more on the philosophical reason why there should or shouldn't be a winery, but I think it's really important to address whether or not the use of this piece of property is contrary to public interest or safety. And my understanding of the conditional use permitting process is that if a proposed development is a permitted conditional use for a zoning district, in general, that permit should be granted unless there's extraordinary circumstances. As the staff report indicates, provided by the County Land Use Services and been referenced previously in a town board meeting by Mr. Tice, there are listed in that staff report those issues that should be addressed with the potential granting of a conditional use permit. Now, I believe we've demonstrated seriously our efforts to positively address those issues in previous meetings, whether the planning committee or the town board. And we have with us today our builder, Mark Neistat of Keller Construction, who've been building buildings and designing buildings here in Wisconsin and this area for decades, and he will be able to give you more details as to the design and demonstrate that he has provided everything that the county has asked for regarding this request. From my standpoint, I just want to make two primary points. One, I come to you all before you as someone who's done this for 12 years now. I started with an empty cornfield. We started this vineyard. We engaged in this agricultural production that led to the production of wine and the sale of wine to customers. And all through that 12 years, we never had one complaint from a neighbor, no police calls, and we fit in very well with our very rural setting in the town of Franklin and Kewaunee County. And we've grown from producing 20,000 bottles a year to 140,000. We have over 25,000 visitors a year. And all the while, we've produced probably 5 full-time jobs, a dozen part-time jobs, and have fit in very well with the neighborhood. So I come to you before you with experience to show you that we have done this and we want to continue to do this and want to work on building a regional reputation. Finally, I think it's important to acknowledge that a plan is just a plan. And there's no doubt that the current comprehensive plan indicates both residential and also rural agricultural. And I think the staff report wisely points out that when there is this conflict, one of the things to look at are one of the major goals of the comprehensive plan. And then identified in that report is goal 3, which says to protect existing agriculture and promote sustainable agricultural operations. Tied to that is the action item to ensure zoning and other regulations are not impeding establishment of new agricultural uses, the expansion or the maintenance of existing operations, or the development of business/industry needed to support agriculture. So I would say that after 12 years of experience, I can't think of too many other endeavors that are more agricultural than a vineyard winery. We know firsthand what's involved in the growing of the product, the making of the product, and selling of the product. And I think that is really something that many people are looking for. They want to come to the place where the product is grown, seeing where it's made, and connect with that on a visceral level with that product. And viticulture is one of the most original agricultural endeavors that's been pursued since the beginning of time. So, and it's not just me saying this. I think you have letters from people from economic development of this community, from agricultural leaders in this community in support of this. I have to say from my conversations with Representative Joel Kitchens, he is very supportive of this industry in this area. I know that some of my compatriots in this business, from Bob Lautenbach to Denny Stapleton, they have other wineries in this area and they hope to see the success of this project. I would point out the letters from the Door County Economic Development Director and the Kewaunee County Economic Development Director in support of this. Dick Weedman and Matt Stashak from the research station have shown strong support for this project because they have been in this industry from a research perspective, and they foresee a bright future for what winemaking and wine growing can be to Door County. And this region, many people may not realize it, but from the top of Door County all the way along the lake shore is one of the newest wine appellations or viticultural areas that has been recognized in the United States. So it's my belief that Door 44, with this vineyard location and the relocation of our current operations, will lead to the generation of more jobs, will increase the tax base, and I think it will serve as a model for how to really develop an economy in a rural setting that benefits so many people that would be involved in this area. So, thank you.
Any questions? Go ahead, Susie. Ooh, you're anxious this time.
Well, I don't want to forget what they were. All right, you talk about relocating a current business. Are you saying that Grandma Tommy's, for example, moves up there, or what's the business that's being relocated?
Door 44 is our current winery right next to Grandma Tommy's.
Oh, next to Grandma.
Yes.
So that one would no longer
Would no longer
operate
exist.
there.
Correct.
Okay. Going back to David's question about the town board's decision on July 6th and then the town board's decision on October 6th, what changed?
I think if I can recall the chronology, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, I thought it was important that when the plans changed that we appeared in front of the town board to explain our intent, and so there was a full picture of the whole process. I think it went to the town board on July 24th. There the town board voted against it, so we made the reapplication. So we were in front of the planning commission again on September 14th, and that was voted down 2-3.
But if there was a letter from July 6th where they approved it?
Right. Because we resubmitted it, we had to go through the process of appearing in front of the planning commission again.
Okay, but there was no change in the plan that was presented? Just the change in ownership?
Pretty much. I think there's been some design changes too,
Okay.
but the philosophy hasn't changed. It's just, you know, different people involved, and we just thought it was wise to start the process again to make
Well,
sure
and I'm
everyone.
not saying that that isn't wise, I just want to know what thinking changed.
Sure.
Can you comment on the things that were in the letters, concerns about the traffic on P and the safety issues in the neighborhood, any of those?
Sure. I would point out that there will be no more traffic going down 42 at that intersection than there currently is, because people are going that way to go to all their destinations. I don't think they're going to our particular place. That's the only reason why they're going to go that far up to 42. I think P, Andy's design here to allow people to get into the property off of P is very wise. I think that is a safe thing to do. I would work very hard to see if we can get a slower speed limit through that intersection. I think that only makes sense. In terms of traffic at a winery, most of the time it is on weekends, not during weekdays. We would not want to be open past 5 or 6 in the afternoon. You know, we're not a bar. We've never intended to be a bar. My personal experience is that we've never had a police call or any kind of traffic issues at a prior location. So, you know, I think it's very important that we can address any particular public safety issue that may exist as to traffic. But I think at the moment that's a design that addresses that issue, and we're open to any suggestions that you may have regarding that issue.
What hours do you open?
Our current location, it's 10 to 5.
Okay. And one last question, then I'll be quiet for a while. What's your reaction to the number of seats and the flexibility of this board to adjust that?
Again, we're open and willing to address the issues as relate to public interest and safety here. I really believe that wineries are experiential. You're supposed to be there to understand. I would give a lot of tours and enjoy the product, but it's not a place to hang out and drink wine per se. So we want people to visit, but only expect them to be there for an hour or two at the most and then move on. So if they can't have an opportunity to sit and enjoy the vineyard, then there is really no point in a tasting room or a winery per se, because that is the nature of most vineyard and wineries. If you travel to the Finger Lakes or Napa, it is to come there to enjoy the experience of the place and to enjoy the beauty of the vineyard. Now that might not be the typical model in Door County, but that's generally how vineyards and wineries are set up. So we're open to that, modifying that, but it should be able to accommodate people on a Saturday or Friday if 50 to 60 people want to enjoy the vineyard while they have a glass of wine.
Thank you.
Okay.
Driveway access.
Yes.
Many comments have been to be off of County P specifically, safer and so forth. Do your plans, are you absolutely comfortable with losing the Highway 42 access?
I am.
Moving it? So my question to there, and it'll be asked probably of the people that speak in opposition. I see a lot of tourists that are site oriented. They drive along, hey, there's something I want to stop, and they pull in.
Right.
My concern about not having a driveway on 42 is the people that suddenly stop, pull over, back up to the next road.
U-turn.
U-turn up the middle of heavy Labor Day traffic. Did you have any considerations in that respects?
I guess, you know, I'm open to any suggestions as to what you would have regarding traffic flow. I just thought it'd be safer to come in off of P than to try to stop in the middle of 42 and turn in.
Except that they'll stop anyways, just as a...
Mark?
No, I'm joking.
No other questions? No. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishes to
I'm
speak?
sorry, can I ask a question?
Oh, sure.
Can you talk a little, you said that your hours at your current site are 10 to 5.
Yes.
I don't know if I heard you talk about what hours you were envisioning for this site, and also what the sort of production level is compared to your current site, to give the committee an idea of how they compare.
Sure, I would foresee similar hours for this particular site as we currently have. As for production, this year it's going to be about 140,000 bottles of wine. And I maxed my capacity out at Perillo 44. So I would like to see production nearing the 6,000 bottle level at this particular location. Just the vineyard itself this year produced over 16 tons of grapes, and that's probably only half of what its capacity is in terms of grape production.
And does your current site next to Grandma Tommy's, do you produce wine there now or just sell it?
Just sell it. We have some barrels and storage in the back, but it's certainly not set up for production purposes.
Where do you produce the wine?
At Perillo 44
And that is in
Kewaunee County.
Kewaunee County.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
That good, Mariah?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of the application?
So I am Maria Milano. Steve is my husband, and we both operate Perillo 44 and Door 44. Steve oversees really the production and the winemaking end, and I oversee our business end. And I was just going to say our hours of operation up actually at Door 44 10 to 6. I think we might have changed them a year or two ago, so I just wanted to correct that. You know, Steve has said a lot of probably what I would say, so I don't want to be repetitive, and you can stop me if I am. But we have been business owners here in the town of Sevastopol for 5 years. And in doing that, we've been good neighbors.
For how long?
About 5 years. We've been good neighbors. We've had no police calls. We've kept a neat and clean facility that we're proud of. We've hired outstanding local staff. We've obeyed the rules and regulations, including any sign laws. We're part of the Door County Wine Trail. We've donated to local organizations and attended local charities where wine is being served. We're members of the local chambers and visitor bureaus, and we pay our taxes. So we feel like we've been contributing citizens to this township. And what we're really looking to do is expand on what we've already done here. Like Steve has talked about, right now our experience is pretty limited with what we're able to do. We have a very small production facility, and mostly it's wine tasting. And we do the best we can with that, but really our true passion is this winemaking and grape growing industry, and we really want to share it with the community and be able to expand on that. And to be able to partner with the Gundrams, who maintain a meticulous vineyard, really is an amazing opportunity. And not only for us as a business owners, because I feel like for us it hasn't just been about expanding our own business. It's really about contributing to the industry and educating the consumer on what that industry is. We're not really able to conduct tours because of our limited ability up here at Door 44, but if you're able to come to Perillo 44 and take a tour, it really is educational. We take people into the vineyard, we take them into the production area, and most people are fascinated by the whole process and really don't understand what goes into making a bottle of wine, which I personally consider a value-added product. We're taking an agricultural product and adding value to it. As Steve mentioned, we have really lived in harmony in an agricultural community in Kewaunee. You've seen some of the letters from our neighbors and other townspeople supporting what we've done. It has been a true partnership, and I feel like we can really bring that true partnership up here to the town of Sevastopol too, which I feel we would be willing to address whatever concerns the homeowners next to us have. We really, we've been open to any kind of changes and really haven't heard many, except we don't want another winery. So it's been hard to really address some of those concerns. I'm trying not to repeat myself, but I really feel like a vote for this project is a vote for expanding farming. This is farming. It might not look like what most people consider farming, but growing grapes is farming. It promotes agritourism, which I think educates the consumer and really has them then support the farming industry. Job creation, we would be creating a number of additional full-time jobs, probably up to 3 full-time positions in addition to part-time positions. And we'd be growing the tax base in the town of Sevastopol. Thank you.
Questions?
Just to clarify, so you and your husband would run the winery and the Gundrums, if I pronounced that right, would still grow the grapes?
Correct. They'd be staying on and maintaining the vineyard.
Good, Dave?
You use the word staying on.
Well,
Are you
I
purchasing
mean,
the property, or?
well, we'd be partnering together.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought maybe ownership was changing also.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of the proposal?
My name is Andy Gundrum, Karen's husband. Just wanted to give you a little timeline as to how this all started. In 2011, we looked at the property, did due diligence to make sure that a winery and a vineyard would fit in there with proper zoning and conditional use permit. But beyond that, we also had to take into consideration that Highway 42 and 57 at the split brought us into the Door County Coastal Byway Program also, which is a federal program. So we had to be very concerned with that also as to whether we could operate a vineyard and a winery at that location. As it turns out, the program actually promotes viticulture as part of the, how should I put it, their description in the Bi-Coastal Byway. Okay. Just to let you know of our production, in 2012, we planted our first 1,500 vines. 2013, we planted 750 vines and took down about 700 diseased fir trees. I don't know if you go by there, but there was a bunch of fir trees there. 2014, we planted another 850 vines, which now takes up about 5 acres of the 20 that we own. Our first harvest was in 2014. We produced 6,140 pounds. Second harvest was in 2015. With the bad winter we had and the late frost, we produced 2,600 pounds. 2016, last year, we had one of our best harvest years because it's a young vineyard, and we produced 12,898 pounds. This year, it was a bummer. Not a bummer, but it was something else. We produced 32,890 pounds of grapes out of that 5 acres, and it's still a young vineyard. And logistically, trying to move this in a position to load trucks and everything is going to be a problem, because I can foresee that the current 5 acres could very well reach 80,000 pounds, much less adding more vineyards or vineyard vines to the parcel. In December of 2016, Karen and I purchased another 5 acres because I thought that when we went into this, access to Highway 42 would be a detriment. So I bought another 5 acres to give us access to County Trunk P. I guess 20 acres in that area is what everybody's looking for. Anyways, that's it. Any questions?
Nope. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of the permit?
Good afternoon. Mark Neistat, 374 here on Green Bay, Wisconsin. As Steve alluded to before, we've been working with the Gundrums for over a year and a half now on this plan. I know someone had mentioned before, I think the question was something changed with the plan? And absolutely, things have been changed with the plan. There was concerns that the building was too big. So we tried to pare it down as far as we could to make sure that their production was right. There was concern that the building was too tall. So again, we came back and redesigned it and lowered it by about 4 feet. Right now, the overall height at the parapet is 20 feet, so it's not that outstanding of a building. If you look at a typical building like the town of Sevastopol with their gable ends, they're over 20 feet. So I think it's a hard to grasp the size of the building because of the size of the property of being 20 acres. But even with all the improvements, I got some colored plans if you'd like them, it's a little easier to tell. But with all the improvements, including the driveways, the parking lots, and the building, the 20 acres still contains over 95% green space. So, in my opinion, 95% green space really fits into the viticulture area and the farming. You're not going to find another business that typically is going to have 95% green space on their driveways and their properties. We have a couple elevation renderings. They're also included in their small pack of what they look like. There's been comments on the looks of the building, but again, that's driven by the owners of the property. There's some concerns with driveway locations and distances from properties. We're about 320 feet off of Highway 42. The parking lot is about 500 feet to the north of the residential lot lines. The parking lot, the corner of the building then would be closest to the north residential property, and that's 150 feet. So I just have the driveway location has been moved and shifted up to the north as far as we can, so then it's 150 feet from the nearest residential. So I have some of these just for reference also. That just shows those distances. And really that's what I'm here for, to answer any questions on construction of the building, anything like that. So if you have any questions for me, I'll be more than happy to answer.
What's the footprint?
The building is 10,800 square feet. The parking lot is dictated by the county for how many spots there are, so we have the exact number of spots that is needed. The parking lot is about 29,000 square feet of pavement. The drives will remain gravel. Very little truck traffic in this area, maybe one semi a week. But we did accommodate that for the turnaround. Speed limit on the gravel road, which they have existing, they have one in Kewanee, which is about 10 miles an hour. And we do understand the neighbors' concerns, and we want to work with them, but we haven't had a lot of two-way conversations.
Go ahead, sir.
If this board decided to lower the number of seats, would that change?
It would change the
Building
parking
it all.
lot size.
But that's all?
It's based on number of patrons, number of employees, and number of seats. Anything else?
Well, you say you leave 95% of the 20 acres green.
Correct.
It looks like that's taking up more than 1 acre.
The building is 10,000 square feet, and the parking lot is 29,000 square feet, so that's 39,000 square feet of hard surface.
What is it, an acre? Yeah.
44,000.
Any questions? Dave?
Yeah,
Just to make sure, this is basically gonna be substantially on top of the hill, right?
That is correct.
Do you want me to go to a different page?
No, I was trying to find the drawing that was more easy to read.
Are you good,
And
Dave?
I found it. Yeah, I'm good.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak in favor?
Richard Weidman, 4108 South Country View Road, town of Sevastopol. Past superintendent of the Peninsula Agricultural Research Station. Reason why I'm here today is to state the uniqueness of this opportunity that I see us attaching a competent winery to a very sustainable vineyard. The University of Wisconsin has spent considerable time, money, and effort into viticulture research. The research station has been involved in research in viticulture for about 10 years. Since I have retired, NWTC has been involved in it. We now have entomologists, plant pathologists, we have a fruit specialist that are all engaged in research in viticulture. I have been involved with this vineyard since its conception, looking at it from a sustainability perspective. It has endured through very, I would say, environmental conditions, 2 winters that were very hard winters. We've had a hailstorm, we've had freezes, and this year we, as Mr. Gundrum indicated, took about 32,000 pounds of quality wine grapes from this vineyard. He also stated that this is probably part of the potential of this vineyard, meaning that it could very easily support and sustain this proposed winery. It's a unique situation in Sevastopol, and it's also a unique situation in Door County. If we look at wineries and vineyards that support wineries in Door County, I think of one in particular, Orchard Country, Bob Lautenbach, who has planted a considerable number of vines that support his winery. One of the complaints of people and wineries, not only in Door County but in other areas, is that either the juice or the fruit is brought in from outside the area. In this particular case, this vineyard easily can sustain probably production, barring any natural disasters. Any crop that's grown, whether it's soybeans, corn, cherries, apples, is always subject to natural phenomena. So, but easily 40,000, 50,000 pounds is obtainable, meaning that the winery that would be attached to it would be relied upon for its product. It's a good site. Certainly, people have opposed this project due to not fitting into the rural community. I would remind those people that viticulture is an agricultural endeavor, somewhat new to Door County, but not unlike when cherries first came into Door County as well. Diversity in agriculture is really the key to survival. And I think adding viticulture to Door County, it's a growing industry, certainly adds to the diversity, adds to the agritourism aspect, and certainly for survival of agriculture versus residential development, whatever type of development, I think is critical for Door County's image, or whatever you'd like to say. So I would entertain any questions as to the vineyard, sustainability of that vineyard, and how would we relate to a winery?
Questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak in favor? Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of the application? Hearing none, we'll move on.
I was wondering when you were going to spark on. Leo Zipper, 3850 Bayshore Drive in Sturgeon Bay. As a former member of the Town of Sevastopol Board, I come before you with the understanding that you do have to listen up and to render a good decision that's going to be profitable not only to the town, but hopefully to the business operators. I'm a little bit familiar with the operation in Kewanee. I'm more familiar with the Door 44 at Gramatomic, and I can tell you that the product they serve in a tasting is very good. I also look at it as a member of a resident of the town, in that it's going to bring a good tax base to our town, and it's perhaps the most important reason for my being here today. We need to encourage businesses and or industry to come in our town, and this is a very good start. The situations that we talked about earlier, I was going to address as ingress and egress to Highway 42. I think will have to be handled by the town and the DOT, the state of Wisconsin. But that condition would be on a permit issued by them. We had much the same issue and concern back when Gramatomi's opened up, and then there was an issue, a cooperation between the town and the state to allow it to happen. It took some money from the town to create the slowdown and the acceleration lanes, and was addressed before. As the people are going along, they say, oh my gosh, what was that? And then they slow down to find out how they get there. So I think eventually you're going to have this may require a access off of Highway 42. But I like the plan. I learned a lot by being here today. So I would just encourage you to act favorably upon their petition.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from Mr. Zipper?
Of course.
I would expect nothing less.
Isn't she allowed to only ask one?
No, I'm allowed to ask as many as I want.
She's got wider range than you'd think.
Tell me more about how the town would handle that. I mean, we've heard some testimony that they're looking at coming off a P, so as not to. But I do understand what a couple people have said about people driving by. So tell me more about how you envision.
Well, the state of Wisconsin would issue the permit, just like the town or the county would issue the permit off of County Trunk P for the access driveway. And the state of Wisconsin DOT would do the same thing. It would be on petition by either the business or the town, and then a collaborative effort between the two to make sure that it happens.
So our decision might simply be P, and then if the town wants to pursue the other, they go ahead and do that? Is that what you're saying?
Sure, I think you can only act on what's before you, and if you condition it that the access be off the 42, I don't know if you can do that.
Do you understand what we have to do?
I think that talk is going to keep coming up. Can I smoke that for a minute?
Yes, I'd like to hear more. Yeah.
Okay. So, to confuse matters, in the actual zoning ordinance standards, in areas that are not designated as core, which this is not a core area, for all the uses except agricultural, but that only applies to farm market in this case, not the winery. Access shall not be taken to a state highway if access to a town, county, or town or county road is available. So
We don't have a choice.
well, I don't know how you distinguish whether it was accessing an agricultural use, which is the farm market, versus the winery.
Okay,
And I also, my experience with the DOT is that if you've got access to two different roads, they're gonna generally make you take access off the lower class. But maybe you guys have had better luck. And as Mr. Zipper said, he is correct that you're acting on a site plan that's before you, so if any changes are gonna be made to that, then that might require a new.
Yeah, the reason why the town got involved with the Grandma Tommy's situation was that there was a propensity to see a whole bunch of rear-enders as the people were, as you said before, slowing down to how do I get in here. So that was on the southbound lane, and eventually we needed to do the same on the acceleration lane on the other side.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
So a question for Mariah's statement. While the non-agricultural has to default to a non-highway 42 if there's access, technically, there's a farm market, which is technically the agricultural, so immaterial, they can still apply for and put an access on 42. Is that a correct understanding?
Well, I don't, you mean from us or from the Department of Transportation?
You just said it. For the winery side of it, they would not be allowed because they have access through P.
Right.
But for the farm market
both
side
uses
of it,
require a conditional use permit, and if you guys approve a site plan with the access coming off of P, we can't authorize a new driveway coming in from somewhere
that's
else.
okay.
So,
Okay. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor?
Next use.
Anybody else wishing to speak in favor? Anybody else wishing to speak in favor? No. No new letters since the ones you gave us just before we opened the meeting, right?
right, there was one from
Has everybody read all those letters?
Maria and Steve, and then one from Dan Rip.
Yeah. Okay.
New
then we'll-
ones that were not in the packet.
Okay, then we'll go to those against the proposal. Anybody wishing to speak against the proposal?
Kathy Johnson, 5482 County Highway P. I'm one of the neighbors to the property where they want to put this up, the winery. I was here before, so you've all heard my spiel before, and I'm sure you don't want to all hear it again, if any of you remember it, but we do have 6 kids in the house from 2 to 17, and it concerns me with having extra people that we don't know in the, whether they be walking around on the property next to us or whatever. A lot of extra traffic. As you know, there's a lot of traffic on County P from various things. So, and they keep mentioning being good neighbors and no police calls on the wineries and that. And I wish I could say the same, because I've had the police called on us twice in the past few weeks by gun drums because of our chickens. So I guess we would have done better having a winery than having free-range chickens. But I think I just think it's kind of out of character to just stick a building in the middle of a field, and I think it's going to add more to the traffic, and it's a safety concern for my family. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Let me show me where you are. Are you this property
Right
next to the
Yep.
driveway?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak against the proposal? Anybody else wishing to speak against the proposal?
My name is Robert Malzahn. I live in our home, which we purchased in 1979 at 5490 County Highway P. We are one of 3 houses side by each, which you aren't aware of there on the photograph.
It's down here?
That area there. Plus Mrs. Marshall is has 5 acres on the north corner. Okay. Because we were missed on the residential areas before. Okay. We all have copies of the testimony that was given at the 4 previous meetings of the Sevastopol Town Planning Committee, 2 meetings, and a Sevastopol Town Board meeting, 2, held to approve or deny the application for a conditional use permit to build a 12,000 square foot winery in Sevastopol Township directly behind our homes. 3 times the application was denied by the town. The 4th time, the town did not vote on the application. Our direct bordering land home owners' testimonies have become redundant. Same proposals, different proposals. The answers are the same. We're not actually against the winery as a winery. We are basically against putting that winery in the position that it's in, the site. This repeated multiple times is kind of ridiculous to us. I'm totally opposed to the construction of the winery on this location. The proposed winery site is on the elevation of 712 to 714 feet above baseline. Add 17 feet for the building's height above ground, and the average land adjoining land in Highway 42, which is 704 feet above baseline. The building will stick out like a sore thumb because you have the vineyard, which is low, and you have an alfalfa field, which is low, and behind it's low. And put it about 24 feet above the top, above the highway. Traffic on State Highway 42 is very to extremely heavy for 5 months of the year. The highway has no passing zones on each approach, north and south, because there's a hill there. Okay, it's part of the hill where the winery is going to sit on top of. The spectacle of this building in the open area between our homes, there's 4 homes, and Maple Heights on the north, and the intersection of 42 and 42 and Highway P may well cause a distraction of drivers on 42. This could be a direct cause for a major accident. The speed limit on 42 is 55 miles an hour. Drivers may well lose many seconds of attention while diverted from safe driving to view the building, which appears quite quickly in the zone. It is so out of place. It's all by itself. Since the drivers are in no passing zones both ways, a single deviation on the driver's point of view could cause a major serious vehicle accident. The car traveling at 60 miles per hour is going 88 feet per second. Granted, that's over the speed limit, but 55 miles an hour is 81 feet per second. 55 miles, 81, pardon me. 45 and 35 miles an hour is 66 feet and 52 feet per second, respectively. There are 3, the building is a major distraction and not the vineyard, which the Condrums have done a very fine job of developing. This discussion, as far as I'm aware, is about the winery and not the merits of the vineyard, because I don't think there are any people opposed to the vineyard or an increase in its size. There are 3 corridors which the town and the county have planned out for construction of this very same type of building enterprise. It is called the Door County Comprehensive and Farmland Preservation Plan, number 2035, which is the town of Sevastopol's future land use plan. This plan was approved by the town of Sevastopol and the county of Door on 16 December 2014 and implemented on January 1st of 2015. The corridors have speed limits of 45 miles per hour on the one from the CNW to the town border south, 35 miles per hour for the corridor designated in Institute area, and 45 miles per hour, 35 for the one in Valmy. Wait a minute, I'm a little mixed up here. 45 miles an hour for the one in Valmy, 35 miles per hour in the one in Institute. There, got that straight. Safety factor in these 3 areas has been thoroughly planned out. They are recommended and encouraged and the ideal location for this proposed project, not our rural residential area planned by the town and the county. Please do not approve the conditional use application for the present site. Thank you. Sincerely, Robert Nelson.
Any questions? Dave?
I made a mistake and forgot to ask her. If this gets approved, would there be value to you to have screening along plantings that would help screen the property, help keep visitors from walking over onto your property?
Well, it would have a positive effect. I think the Johnson property, my wife's and I property is in the middle between the corner and the other. With her, we're beyond children. Their concerns are concerns of all of us. And I think in that situation, yes, I probably think it would help. Mrs. Johnson?
Okay. All right, thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak against the proposal?
Hello, everybody. My name is June Michael, and I'm the mother of the son who should be here, but he's out harvesting crops. We are the farmers. We farm all the land. We farm east, south, and west of the proposed place.
You have a pointer right next to you if you can.
What?
You have a pointer next to you. If you want to point, just push the red
I
button.
don't know. What do I do?
Push the red button and point it towards this one.
Okay,
there you go.
we rent this property right here. Oh, see, I'm shaking. And by the way, that's supposed to be an 80-acre lot. And if he's only got 20 acres, in my estimation, they've got more than 40 acres marked there in that yellow. We farm this one, we own this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and 60 acres here. We rent this, this, and this.
And what's your address, please?
4555 Highway 42.
Thank you.
We live right here. Right there. There's my house. I sat right here at this stop sign trying to get on 42 for 15 minutes. I could not get on 42 to turn south to go to my home. That corner is an accident waiting to happen.
It must have been a Sunday afternoon around 4 o'clock.
No, it wasn't. I couldn't even get to church Sunday, but that was going towards Sturgeon Bay. I agree with everything they said about traffic, so I can't repeat it. You've downed my thing about 7 wineries in the county, so I can't repeat that. But I do feel the 7 wineries in the county is enough. You got to call. We've got a lot of empty buildings in this county. And what's going to happen when you have a surplus? Somebody's going to go bust it. And then there'll be empty buildings again. Let's see. Because we farm, we haul manure. Because we farm, we spray. We've been doing this for 70 years. We've have 5 generations of Michaels that have been farming. Are we going to get a lot of flack because we're hauling manure and some of the customers of this winery don't like it? Already my son had to, in this area right here, because of the, right here, he had to make 3 swipes that he couldn't spray. So 3 swipes, and you know how wide those spray things are. 3 swipes, the crop production wasn't as great as the rest because there were weeds in it. So we took a loss because of the grapes being there. And I can't estimate how much the loss was, but there was a loss.
Why couldn't you spray?
Why don't we spray?
No, why couldn't you?
Because the wind was blowing in the wrong direction and it would have gone on the grapes and their grapes would have been gone. Yeah. So we're protective. We always tell the neighbors what we're going to spray so they know that hey, Michaels are going to spray that day. Okay, and I want you to be very cautious if you're going to take into consideration surveys. You know, Hillary Clinton didn't win, and she was predicted to win by surveys. I was in a winery, the one over at Carlsville, and a big bus came in there. And I was talking to some of the people in the busload, and they said, every place they went on that tour were all wineries. They were having a winery tour. They were given a survey. And on the survey it says, where do you like to go in Door County? Well, you know what they're going to say. They'd like to go on wineries. But if they were in a marathon, they'd like to go to a marathon. If they were in a golf tournament, they'd like to go to a golf tournament. I mean, you know, you have to be careful when you have a survey. Okay, I don't know what else I can say. I'm vehemently opposed to this winery in the location it is. Put it inside, put it in a different location, then fine. But that corner, I don't want them to be responsible if someone has an accident and dies. Okay, that's all I have to say, and I wanted to, I have some questions to ask them. I want to ask them what they're going to do with their refuse. What are they going to do with the grape skins? Because you know, years ago we had cherry factories, a lot more than we do now. And some of the neighbors had cherry pits coming out of their kitchen sink faucets. So what are they going to do with their, I don't know if these grapes have seeds or not. I don't know if they're seedless or if they're full of seeds. But I do know that the skins are not in the wine. And the skins have to be put somewhere, and I don't know where they go.
Well, you've asked it. They'll probably address that in rebuttal.
Okay. Now.
Anything else?
You want? No, I think that's it.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak against the proposal?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Kathy Marshall. I live at 4648 State Highway 42. If you look at the map, we own the property directly to the Marshall. We own the property directly to the north. We own the 5 acres between the Gundram's property and Maple Heights subdivision. I have had a couple of concerns for a while. One of them is the traffic on 42, and a lot of my concerns have already been addressed here, but it was mentioned that people will stop or slow down and say, wow, a winery, how do we turn around? Well, they're going to turn around in my driveway. It's a long driveway, it's paved, it's a nice driveway to turn around. I predict that I'm going to get a lot of traffic because people are going to realize that they just passed the winery if they're heading north. My second concern is that they're locating the building on the hill. In the springtime, my husband and I have already had a lot of runoff in the form of water. What is that building displacement of the soil, what is that going to do to the runoff? Is it going to affect my property? Is it going to flood my property? Another concern I have is for the demand of water. I know that I Googled it, and I heard that on the radio also, but apparently it takes 872 gallons of water to produce 1 gallon of wine. And I know a lot of that comes in the form of rain, but it does put a demand on the water supply, especially on our water supply and on the water supply of the people living on County P. And I don't know the water system in Door County. I don't know how much water is available, but if we happen to tap into the same vein, is that going to affect our well? Is our well going to go dry? So those are the concerns that I have. I think the production of grapes is wonderful. I love seeing those grapevines out there. They're beautiful. I wish we could see those grapevines on the 20 acres instead of a winery. So that's all I have.
Any questions?
Questions for me? Thank you for consideration. Oh, you know what? There was one thing I forgot.
Okay.
It was brought up that this has been denied 3 times by the board, the Sevastopol Town Board. And I'm just curious as to how it can come up again here when it's been denied the 3 times. Could you answer that question for me?
So what we do by state law, when someone's applying for a conditional use permit, we have to have a hearing before the Resource Planning Committee, and we're required to post a notice in the newspaper twice. What Door County has also done in addition to that is we give the town roughly an extra 4 weeks to take a look at applications that are going to public hearing in order to have time to give input to the committee. In this particular case, you've got a town board member who's going to speak to the exact process, but typically what towns do when they get the packet of information from us is they hold a plan commission meeting, which comes up with a recommendation, and then the town board looks at it, and then this is actually the deciding body though, so the town is just giving input to the county.
Okay. Thank you.
And there have been 2 sets of applications in this case because there was a rezoning and then now the conditional use permit.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak against the proposal?
Yes. My name's Dan Wolfel. I am the town chairman for Sevastopol. I live at 4774 Bark Road. And I guess my role here today is just to explain what transpired and why you received a recommendation from the Plan Commission versus the board. And because it is reasonably complex, I'm going to read you my thoughts and feel free to jump in. Project came to the Town Planning Commission in 2 parts. The zoning part, and then a month later we had the request for the farm market winery. This caused some problems, the breakage in between, and caused problems with the Planning Commission and caused problems with the board. The net result was that the zoning changed. The request was supported by the committee and subsequently by the town board. And as you know, the county then approved the zoning change to general ag. The following month after the zoning change, the building conditional use came before the planning committee. Their initial recommendation was to recommend to the town board for support. At the subsequent town board meeting, there were concerns that came up from residents, neighbors, and from the board. The recommendation from the town's planning commission was overturned or overridden, and the town board voted to deny support for the project at that time. That's why you heard different dates by different letters. You never received the first letter that was referenced, you only received the second one. Never went to the town. The Gunrins then pulled their conditional use request and reapplied, restarting the entire process, which brings us back to today. At a subsequent planning committee meeting, they voted to deny support and recommended that to the town board. There were concerns over the size, the design of the structure, and not fitting well within our comprehensive plan. At the following monthly town board meeting, during our deliberations, I attempted to find a solution that might have resulted in a win-win for all.
Rather than take a vote, I proposed a joint meeting of the Gundrits, those opposed to the project, our planning committee, and the town board. The purpose was to resolve differences so that at a future town board meeting, we could potentially support the project. With the input and agreement from all the parties at that meeting, we set a date of October 2nd. I thought we had a solution to resolve the differences, to address the concerns that included potential redesign, downsizing, screening, roads, and other issues that had been raised. Right. All present agreed to the plan and to the timing. Taking this course of action would have delayed the RPC hearing at least 2 weeks, but I believe it could have resulted in a win-win for all the parties. A couple of days later, we were informed that the delay would cause a financial problem for the Gundrins and that they were moving ahead as originally planned. As a result, I canceled the joint working session, as any of the proposed changes would have been moot had the original plan as submitted today been approved by you. I did not want to create any more frustration for those opposed to the project, and therefore we did not put it up to a vote. So that's the reason that you received the recommendation you did from the planning committee. So, any questions?
Okay, any questions?
What-
Dave, go ahead, Dave.
No, go ahead.
Briefly, what substantially changed between the first yes to the second no?
The breakage between the first application for the zoning change and then the second piece that came a month later for the farm market winery, a couple things happened. One, there was a ground...
Hold on. So the first letter was in reference to just the zoning? The first approval was just in reference to the zoning request?
No. Well, it was a two-step process. The zoning piece was approved by both the planning committee and the town, and the county approved it.
Yeah, right.
After that, they came back with the winery farm market. And during the winery farm market portion of that approval, the committee approved that.
Okay. I had a timeline issue that I didn't. I just answered.
I think I can help.
Go ahead.
The timeline that Dan laid out is matches everything I've seen. I think one of the intervening things was the rezoning hearing. So a lot of neighbors hadn't heard about what was going on until they got the notice from us.
That's the part I just made clear.
And I don't remember the date on when that happened, but I think that.
For some reason, I was thinking they had also proposed the buildings at that time at the same time.
No, and this is where...
It wasn't, so it is no longer a moot point.
Right, and this is where the conflict came in terms of what happened later on. It turned a number of issues, so...
Susie?
Either as the town chair, if you feel you can do it as the town chair, or yourself, would any of the things that you think might have changed had that meeting happened be things that were addressed in the possible conditions that might be put on this? I don't know if that makes sense. Did that make sense?
I know that too.
I didn't understand the question.
I'm not sure I did either.
Well, you said, I get
Something's
that all the
wrong.
time. I get that all the time. Well, you said had you all sat down and worked on some things relating to screening, relating to traffic, relating to
design, size,
whatever.
Correct.
And some of those are things that our conditions deal with. And I'm just wondering if any of that would alleviate some of the issues.
Well, what I was trying to achieve was I was trying to get consensus from the people that were opposed, as well as my own board and the committees, to say these are the key things that might allow us to move forward with a recommendation. There were some concerns that I don't think in the long run might have been addressed, which was that there was a conversation about design, a conversation about size driving the size of the parking lot, and things of that nature. I don't know if we'd overcome those or not, but I was willing to invest the time and effort to try and reach some conclusion, which we unfortunately were not able to do.
One thing we haven't talked about is signs. I wonder if you could address how the sign issue will be dealt with by the county, should this be granted?
Well,
you have standards.
Right. It is part of that stretch of highway is part of the Door County Coastal Byway, the scenic byway designation. So no off-premise signs will be be allowed. They'll be able to have on-premise signs, and it'll be up to them to decide where they're gonna put them, and the size and spacing and setbacks and all that stuff will be dictated by our ordinance. They would be allowed to have, I think they'd be allowed, because we're not the only ones that have jurisdiction, the Department of Transportation does as well, but I think they'd be allowed to have one of those black and white directional signs at the intersection of 42 and County P. But that's, like I said, not entirely up to us. They have some rules about who can have them and who can't. But I should clarify too that those are the only off-premise signs that are allowed in the byway. So you couldn't have a sign, a ways back saying up ahead is, whatever. Right. It's just the arrows.
Okay. Anything else?
Would the town have been more in favor of it instead of building this on farmland? Would they have been more receptive to it if it would have been, grow the grapes on the 20 acres, but produce and show and have the winery in one of your core areas?
They would have walked away with 100% support.
See, yeah, and we'll talk about that later, but I've got a monster problem with people coming in and taking our farmland away. And that's what they're doing when you build that big a building and that parking lot. I know that the core areas at one time were farm areas too, but we've only got so much. We got more people every day. So we're gonna run out of farmland to feed the people. And so and this is only one little thing, but I have a problem with it. We'll talk about it later. But that's why I asked that question, because, what is it, Door 44 and Grandma Tommy's. That's a core area where they've displayed it.
They have, I'll pull up
the
core area, or it's the future land use map.
So, and the town was, anyway, okay. Any other questions? Okay. Anybody else wishing to speak against the proposal?
God, is this hard to read? Never mind.
That's why I'm taking my glasses off and on, off and on.
Now I know I need to work on that later.
Anybody else wishing to speak against the proposal? Anybody else wishing to speak against? Okay. We will move into the rebuttal phase of it. Anybody that spoke for can speak in rebuttal and address the concerns that were brought up by those that spoke against. You can't bring up new, you can only speak in rebuttal to what was said.
Or answer questions.
Or answer our questions, yeah.
Steve Johnson, 210 Arbor Lane, Green Bay. The first issue I'd like to address, Mr. Fisher, is the point that you just made regarding agriculture. This is an agricultural business like any other farm in Door County. This vineyard could be expanded to potentially 15 acres. So I think it's sort of a novel concept for many in Wisconsin to think of viticulture as agriculture, but it's as agricultural as it gets. And I really highlight that based on the fact that the comprehensive plan for the county indicates the importance of keeping agricultural lands in the fabric of this community. And I think this is something that is very important. It's a permitted use under this zoning, and I think it meshes very well with the comprehensive plan. And if there is a conflict between the existence of residential and rural agricultural, if the comprehensive plan has goals that are meaningful, I think this is how to apply that goal to that potential conflict. I guess the previous concerns that people have expressed, I don't know if there's time to go through each one of them. I guess I would merely just state we've done this for 12 years without having any complaints from any neighbors. And we've coexisted in about as rural of a setting as there can be. Any issues that seem to be apparent to you, as committee members, I indicate we're open and willing to address those. And that's what we're here today to do, is to find conditions to make this a permitted use. I think that's the nature of the whole proceeding, and we're here today to be open to that. So rather than duplicating previous answers, I just want to emphasize our experience here prepares us for this potential of addressing conditions that you want to set on this piece of property. I can speak from first-hand experience how to deal with any and all issues that may be of concern to the committee.
Any questions?
Of course. I would appreciate if you would answer the questions of these ladies about the refuse, about the demand for water, and the storm water runoff.
Sure. The stormwater runoff, unfortunately, Mr. Neistat had to leave to go to a funeral at 4:15, but I believe that's been addressed through the parking surface areas and compliance with the county requirements as to that issue in terms of storm runoff. In terms of refuse, yeah, I would say maybe 10% of a grape cluster is basically not used. It is the skin and seed. We compost that, and after a year or two, put it back out in the vineyard. It's a good source of nitrogen for the vines. What was the other issue?
The water.
The water. Yeah, we have just a standard well, 120-foot well at our current location, and it's more than sufficient to meet our demands, and we produce twice what would be produced at this site.
Okay, Sue, are you looking at stormwater runoff stuff?
I am trying to, but it's hard to tell on the small scale. So Mariah, if you can go to their site plan, which is on page site plan 43, please. And if you can zoom in to that gray shaded area to the northwest and see what that is. To be honest, there is no stormwater plan on file here, but I'm curious if that's saying that. Oh, sanitary. I don't believe there is any stormwater plan that's been turned in with this application.
It'd be required though, right?
You could add
Yeah,
that.
wouldn't they, doesn't soil and water demand that?
Well,
We've done that in the
yeah,
past.
that's as you will recall, that's a discuss, not specifically with regard to this project, but that we've been talking about how to better coordinate when one is going to be required. The state requires a stormwater runoff plan in some cases, but this, I don't believe this is a large enough project that the state would be requiring it. So if the county wanted one, we would have to
Have soil and water do it.
The state requires it when you disturb over an acre on the site.
Well, that's during construction.
Right, correct.
She's referring to stormwater runoff.
For-
Yeah,
right,
the
right,
impervious
and building
surfaces.
it, right, so there's.
But you do have gravel driveways, right? So
Correct.
that's not impervious. So that's good.
I'm gonna go back to the conditions, because soon I realized there's a couple things that we forgot to ask the applicants when they were up here.
So on number 2, a completion date.
On which page?
Page 51. Number 2, completion date. I know the applicants had set March of 2018. I don't know if that becomes an issue, if you want to talk about that. Hours of operation, perhaps to talk about, open to the public. I know testimony was 10 to 6, I believe, but are there different hours for the production and the workers that are producing the wine and or truck traffic coming and going? And then number 10, I don't believe we've asked the applicant about blasting or hours of blasting, anticipated things like that.
During construction.
During construction.
Yeah, I think should the conditional use permit be provided, the completion date probably gets pushed out 3 more months from what the initial date had been set. Hours of operation, it's generally going to be 10 to 5. During harvest season, we work till 7 or 8 o'clock at night with crushing and pressing of the grapes, but that's only going to be about 2 people that will be doing that at the moment.
That's all indoors.
Generally, the pressing is, the stemming process is out on a crush pad, usually outside, but that's a 4-week period out of the month, or out of the year.
How noisy is that?
Not too bad. It's just a destemmer that's knocking the berries off the stems. You can talk over it while you're doing it.
And what times during the day do you do that?
It would generally be during the daytime when you were harvesting the
Daytime
grapes. I do it sometimes in the later afternoon because we have other growers coming in, but generally it's going to be confined to regular work hours and just for that 4-week period out of the year.
So if like outside exterior operations to 8 o'clock at night would be?
Very rare.
So like 8 to 8, that would be fine. For
Right.
deliveries and staff and any outdoor activity or?
Deliveries are going to be during normal business hours. There isn't many trucks coming in at all. I mean, maybe once every few months there's a semi coming in with a load of glass that'd be used to bottle the wine. But it's not like a production facility where you have semi-trailers coming in and out every day. It's at our current location, which is twice the production of this place, a semi comes once a month. And what were the other issues to address here?
Blasting.
If there's going to be any blasting during construction.
Yeah, Mr. Neistat could speak to that. I wouldn't think there would be much. If there is, I'm sure we can accommodate dealing with that. We're not putting a basement into the place. We're kind of building up on the hill there. So, any other issues here?
How many employees do you have there, or will you have when this is in operation?
I would say on your typical day, there will be 3 or 4 full-time people, and on the weekends, when it's busier in the tasting room, you'll have an additional 3 or 4 people in the tasting room.
What about producing the product?
Generally, it's me as the winemaker and an assistant that are doing all the production processes. On a bottling day, you might bring an extra person or 2 to help with that.
Any other questions? Dave?
I asked the question earlier about screening. Your other location is a little bit more rural than this is. I mean, there aren't that many houses, but you do have several houses fairly close to this lot. Have you considered any kind of screening?
Yeah, we're more than amenable to putting up trees, fences, whatever would be sufficient to make everyone happy. I think it's a great view to have of a vineyard, but if trees or fencing are deemed to be something that people want, we're more than happy to do that.
Yeah, I guess my comment in reference to looking something beautiful to look at, the difference is you have 3 houses on the one side that are in a rural agricultural world that suddenly will now have thousands of people visiting right next door.
Yeah, I mean, I think on your average weekday, there aren't going to be that many people there. It's primarily on the weekends, and their view would be of people sitting on a patio enjoying the wine. So,
and privacy.
Sure. I think though that the way that this layout is designed, they are actually quite far away from the residences because they're up on the hill there. So the whole point of the place was to give people a view of the vineyard to enjoy the atmosphere created by a vineyard winery experience. So that separation between the residential and their view of the vineyard, I think, is critical to a well-designed plan.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
Can you give us a rough idea of, I know you've estimated the number of bottles and we know how many acres are in grapes right now. Is everything on that property going to be all that's used for the production that's happening there?
No. We just had a delivery of 5 tons of grapes from Washington Island at our Parallel 44 location 2 days ago. So that delivery would come to this particular site. I have another grower on the Door County line that has about 15 tons of grapes that he annually produces. That would be brought to Door 44 because that's closer in location to Parallel 44. And any other potential future growers in Door County, I'd hope to work with to produce wine with the grapes they grow in this area.
So roughly 5 acres of grapes is how many bottles out of the 60,000?
It depends on the varietal and the topography of the yield, but I would say on average 5 acres is going to yield about 20,000 bottles.
Good? Okay. You must fertilize your crops. It's a crop. You fertilize, right?
Very rarely. Grapes are one of those agricultural products that don't need a lot of fertilization. Once in a while, you'll do an application of nitrogen every other year. But our current location at Parallel 44 is a former gravel pit, and so it's less than fertile. But that's really ideal for a vineyard in terms of producing quality grapes. You don't want too much fertility.
Okay. And the reason I ask, because one of the individuals that was against it spoke, they have farms, or a farm, and they spread. What is the situation going to be? Because some people find that less than pleasing.
It's something we've gotten used to. We're in the middle of mega farms all around us in Kewaunee County, and visitors keep coming, and they smell it occasionally, but everyone's happy.
And that's a location where people are coming to go to a winery.
Exactly. Yep, they're making it a point to come there because it's not on the beaten path in Kewaunee County.
All right, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else that spoke in favor wish to speak in rebuttal? Again, no new testimony. You must address what was said by those against the project.
Okay. I had mentioned one of the criteria when I went into this project, when my wife and I went into it in 2011, was to meet the requirements of the Door County Coastal Byway Corridor Management Plan. And as I dug into it, part of the plan states 5.2, support and preserve small family farms as well as low impact and emerging agriculture operations. Part of that action specifically says support the Niagara Escarpment Viticulture designation. So that's another reason why we purchased that property, because everything said, yes, do it. Doesn't say in here support 1,000-acre farms. It says support small family farms. Now, in going off of that, I know one of the people brought up the chickens, okay? Minimal, but we estimate that the chickens ate, because they're volatile eaters or feeders, almost 600 pounds of my...
there won't be anything from the back, okay? Go ahead.
Of my Louise Swenson white grapes, okay? Now, I'm not the only one that has called the police on, or the sheriff on this. Volkman's on the corner called them also, because the chickens are running wild. However, we are willing to put up a fence where she can have her free-range chickens and it won't bother anybody, okay? I wish Mrs. Michaels was still here, because she talked about her son not being able to use herbicides the way he'd want to. Well, the fact of the matter is, 2 years ago, I had just gotten 200 Saskatoons. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of those, but they're a Canadian berry, very prevalent in Canada. Planted them there. I lost all 200 of them to drift. Never said a word to the Michaels family. I just ate it. But, so, you know, I understand what she's saying, that they can't spray, but they're not supposed to spray, because drift is a major concern right now with farmers. Last thing is, I know there was some question about irrigation of the vineyard. We've got a slow drip system, which was developed by Israel, uses minimal amount of water. This year, we never even turned it on. So, that's it.
Okay, any other questions?
I have a question, but it's not actually germane to the issue. I do know what Saskatoons are. Did you replant them?
Yes, I did.
Curious.
And what makes it so difficult is I get them out of Canada, and they have to go to San Francisco to be inspected, okay? And, I mean, we are constantly on the phone trying to push these inspectors to get this done.
Yeah, you don't need them dying on you.
Exactly. So, we got another group in, we planted them, and I think those are going to take. And I actually rent part of the property to Mr. Michaels, but I'm not going to do that anymore because of the drift. So, anyways, any other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else wishing to speak in rebuttal?
I need to say my name again?
Yes.
Karen Gundrum. I just have one thing. Mrs. Johnson was concerned about extra people walking around on her property. When the winery's up and running and we have tours, they'll all be guided. So people will not just be wandering around. They'll be parking their vehicles and they'll be having a guided tour if they go into the vineyard. So I just wanted to make that statement.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
Anybody else? Anybody else that spoke in favor of it wishes to speak in rebuttal? Going once, going twice? All right. Then anybody that spoke against the project has a chance to rebut what was said now. But again, it's not new testimony, not rehashing anything. You have to address the concerns that these people brought up. Am I making that clear? Okay.
That's what, yes.
Yes, you have to rebut the rebuttal, yes.
Well
That's-
said.
that's
Well
exactly-
said, but-
That's right. So anybody wishing to speak?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
You have to state your name and address again.
Robert Malzahn, 5490 County Highway P. It seems like there's lots of change of stories as the time have come on from one meeting to another meeting to another meeting. Figures of tonnage, pounds. I think there's a tremendous amount of difference in what we've been told. And the designs that are shown here now. I was in the land office yesterday. I've been to the land office a number of times.
Ask him to speak closer to the mic so we can hear.
Speak closer to the mic.
Okay. I've been to the land office a number of times trying to gather information on this proposal. The pictures that were shown here are not available from the land office. They don't have copies of them. Some of the photographs that you've got here that are vital, I mean, they're very important, are not available through the land office. I've purchased at my own price, or at my own expense.
Are you talking about the planning department or the soil and
Land-
water?
He's talking about
No,
Our land use department.
Land use department. They've been very helpful to me, but a lot of this information has not been made available to the public. And like I say, at my own cost, I've purchased copies of the proposal. The elevation drawing, the heights of the building were scrubbed on the second time the proposal came up. Now I hear that the elevation is going to be X, and that doesn't add up. I'm sorry, but I just see too much changes without not notification, without available in writing. The fence or the shielding or screening, that was proposed. That was another of the topics that was going to come up at this October 2nd meeting. That never took place. We were willing. They said they were willing. They'd rather skip the town and come to the RPC directly. So my rebuttal is I'm getting too much information from these people that doesn't jive from one meeting to another. And it's not in black and white on paper. So I guess I'm up in here. I just don't I don't know what to do. I mean, I understand this is a business operation. There again, I can't talk about it. I said already, but thank you for listening.
You bet. Any questions? No? Okay, thank you. Anybody else wishing to rebut the rebuttal?
Oh, you know what? I haven't asked this question, so I may as well come up here. I'm Kathy Marshall. I'm the one that was concerned about the water runoff. And the answer I got, if I'm understanding this correctly from everybody, is if the building is on less than 1 acre, the state does not require any kind of plan for water runoff. Am I getting that correctly from this committee?
But the committee, they could ask.
We can ask for it.
You can ask for it, okay, because at one of the town meetings, I had asked this very same question, and I was told that they had plans for 2 different sites for water, to hold the water runoff. So I'm just concerned now that the state's not requiring it, and they're saying, yes, they had put in their plan to have 2, but it was gonna be dictated by the soil and water where those were gonna be placed on the property. That was my understanding from one of the board meetings.
Yeah, we haven't seen any plans for stormwater. I'll look through it again to make sure I'm not missing something. The state is based on land disturbance, so not just the building, but anything else disturbed on site, that 1 acre requirement, the state will require.
But they're just less than 1 acre, so the state wouldn't even have anything to do with this, correct?
I haven't calculated the size of the parking and the building and all of that, so.
Okay, so you don't know yet.
I'm not sure, but
Okay.
we have not required one. But
Well, if
the
you haven't
committee-
calculated that, then how can they really determine or discuss this if they don't know if it's going to be on an acre or not?
We have the power to put a condition on to
Okay.
require a soil, require
runoff
soil
plan?
and water to do
A runoff plan or a
runoff
water
plan.
storage, whatever. Okay, okay, thank you for listening.
Sure.
Questions? I'm asking questions. Thank you.
Anybody else? No other questions? Okay, then we'll close.
5 minutes then.
What?
Give us 5
We'll close the hearing. Let me close the hearing first. We'll close this hearing and take a 5-minute recess and then have our regular business meeting.
Yes.
All right.
Yep, I just want to make sure this is.
We'll call the meeting to order. Verification of proper notice and posting procedures.
Yes.
That's been done. Quorum present, John Cook is absent. I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, no public comment. No other correspondence on anything?
No, I've got some FEMA stuff. I'll bring it to the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Read and act on minutes of October 5th, 2017.
I move we adopt the minutes of October 5th as published.
Second.
Any corrections, comments, additions? Anything on that? If not, all those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Zoning matters. Joseph Parent Enterprises. Entertain a motion on that.
Which one? I move we grant the after-the-fact conditional use permit, subject to some conditions.
Second that.
And would you like to name those conditions?
Well, I gotta find them first.
Well, that's what I was just trying to, what page is that on?
I'm gonna find it right now, sorry.
One of them
28.
is time of operation, and I thought we said 9 to 4:30.
9 to 4:30 for the screening on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Correct, and then 9 to 4:30 for 5 days a week for
5 days a
pickup and
week.
delivery.
Yes.
Okay, I wanna make sure that I've got, so Monday to Friday, 9 to 4:30, but Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are the only days they can do screening.
Correct.
Right.
Page 27.
27.
Oh, yeah, there it is, okay.
Is there a faster way to go through this than just,
Well,
Yeah.
some of
Type
them
into
are.
the top,
Top center, you'll see page numbers.
you gotta,
I will?
Click on this page number and put in the page number you want.
This one right here?
Yeah, click on, well, you gotta highlight it.
Yeah, I will.
To a page
Okay.
width, I don't like that.
That's why I like my mouse.
Oh, yeah, same here. No.
You need a mouse. What do you
so
need?
they've done, so they've taken care of 1 and 2, they haven't attacked.
Doesn't do anything.
Okay, so we have the hours of
No,
operation.
I guess that doesn't work. What page did you say it was?
It's at the bottom of 27,
27.
going into 28.
Okay, go ahead.
So that's the hours of operations, including the screen, or actually the mechanical, the on-site operations, is that what, because, is he just gonna be doing screening there? The one piece of equipment?
So you said loading and access, Monday through Friday, 9 to 4:30, and screening is limited to Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 9 to 4:30.
And my comment would be, other than saying screening, is there other kinds of equipment he might bring in later on that would be equally noisy that?
Machinery to take it off and on.
Right, but he can't do a crusher, right? That's not allowed there.
Well,
Oh,
that's,
right,
I
we were
made
gonna say
notes.
that, yes.
So in addition to the staff report, which I wish we had these on the page, but I made notes about no crushing, blasting, or excavating, just to make that clear, since they
Yep.
said that they're not doing that.
Right.
And then you had discussed the fire chief's desire to be able to get around
Right.
that propane tank. You had talked about reclamation with soil and water overseeing it, and then the hours were the only notes I had made in addition to what,
And the completion date.
right.
Right.
And considering what they said now, 5 years, 10 years, whatever.
I would think they asked for 10 with an option. I would say, just say for
10.
10 years.
And I wouldn't go any further than 10.
No,
No.
no, that's really.
Let him come back.
Yeah.
And
Come back.
with the hours and days, since the testimony from the neighbor was that they didn't care if it was longer in the off-season.
Yes,
do you
that
want
should-
those hours and
Oh.
days to be May to October?
That should be, I think, what was it?
She
May,
said-
May through October?
November
Right.
through.
November through April.
It's-
Here somewhere.
Right.
So the reverse.
It's not limited.
So do you want different hours for November to April?
Well, then they could be 5 days a week.
7:30 to 5 days a week.
So in other words, the screening would be restricted the
Only
other
during-
months to
yeah.
Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to those hours.
November to April, there was no problem with it.
My
So what do you
only,
want me to, what do you want us to put for November to April?
Same hours, but not limited.
correct.
Or more hours, or?
But not limited to 3 days.
We'll give them 8 o'clock.
Well,
So the operational hours would be the same year
The
round.
person that testified had no problem with their operation at any time from
Right, that's what I'm
November
saying,
to
you want
April.
longer
So
hours.
there's no restriction.
Yeah, I would agree with that, it's just nothing on
Yeah.
the, so if they want to haul rock at 3 a.m.
They're not gonna, yeah, and they're not
No,
gonna
I-
do that.
No.
So, yeah, there's no restriction November to April.
Well, you could, if you
Still
look
do
at number
reasonable,
2 on there,
7:30 to-
for
Well, let's say
6 a.m.
7:30 to
7
5,
p.m.
7:30, let's say 7:30 to 6. Well, no, they won't have to, because
It'll be
it'll be
dark.
dark.
7:30
They have
to
lights,
5.
you know.
Yeah, still. 7:30 to 5 is reasonable, Monday through Friday.
7:30 to
Not
5.
in the
First,
dark
and that's
ages.
November to April.
Yeah, no
Okay,
need to
and then-
work on the weekend, no, he left too.
No, they're 15% off
I
now.
think
Yeah, he
that's,
did it earlier.
yeah, that's all right.
Okay.
Anything else?
Outside of what they already have lined up there, no, I don't.
The only the only comment I still have is, as opposed to saying screening, can we use a more generic term in case he brings some other piece of equipment in that is not a screening piece of equipment, but equally makes noise? To that scale, is there a more generic term we could possibly use?
You mean a piece of equipment that can't be noisier than the ones that are already there, is that what you're saying?
Well, we mentioned rock crushing, we mentioned the other, what was the other items you mentioned?
Excavating and blasting.
Okay, so, but there's probably another piece of equipment he could purchase that might be just as noisy as the screener, which is what he currently has, that if you spell out just the screener, is there a more generic term you can use than screener?
I don't know the names of equipment or
Well, that's what I'm
if
getting at.
something's gonna get invented.
Leave it go at screening, don't get too, yeah.
deal with it.
So I'm good with that otherwise.
Anything else? Any other?
You had talked about moving equipment back,
And it's,
Yeah,
and he was okay with it, but I don't know that there's any real value to it.
I don't, to tell you the truth, I know I know the area. I don't think it'd make any difference.
I don't think so either.
I don't either.
No. So, I don't think that's a concern.
And the space on the other side of the road is higher, which is gonna get
Sure.
the noise coming through, so.
Yep. Okay, are we good with that?
Can we walk through them quickly? I want to
Sure.
make sure I don't miss anything. Okay, so hours and days for operation, we've got different between May to October, and which is November to April. You said 10-year completion date. I'm not going in order here. Sorry. All right, I'll start over. May to October, Monday to Friday, 9 to 4:30, with Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday being the only days where screening is allowed. November to April, Monday to Friday, 7:30 to 5. No restriction on what type of activity they're doing when. Then, so that covers 1 and 2 in the packet that we want you to look at. Keep existing vegetative screening, number 3, the rock shaker pad, number 4, an erosion control silt fence, number 5, reclamation plan, number 6. Let's see.
Excuse me. That's a case.
Number 7, equipment with potential to leak contaminants needs to take measures to ensure that's not going to happen. Number 8, control dust. 9, the usual condition about adhering to local codes. The completion date you've said is 10 years. And then I've got 2 additional things, which are to just specifically say there shall be no excavating, blasting, and crushing, and that one driveway around the propane tank area
Is
needs
left
to be
open.
clear
Yes.
due to the fire chief
How
concern.
about remain clear to the satisfaction of the fire department?
Okay.
Because he may only require 10 feet and then he doesn't, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I don't know how wide it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all I have for conditions. Is that everything?
Yep.
That it? All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Andrew J. and Karen M. Gundrum.
Where do I pay the $25?
Right up here, right up here.
Goes the United Way, actually. You're supposed to make a $25 donation to the United Way.
Well, just give me cash, I'll make sure it gets there. Now they'll have that on the tape, they'll think,
Yeah,
oh.
for the record. For the record, that's a county board rule if you let your cell phone.
Yeah. I think that is. You're supposed to donate
To the United Way, yeah.
Thanks for that
unenforceable.
clarification.
Unenforceable. All right,
Yeah,
enough
it
kidding,
applies to the
enough
county board, it
joking.
doesn't have
Andrew
anything to
J.
do
and
with
Karen M. Gundrum. And the silence speaks volumes. Then I'll start. I'm torn here. I've got 2 individuals on the opposite side. I put a lot of weight in what both of them say. Not that I don't with the rest of you, but you got the town chairman, the past town chairman, past.
I
What?
don't think that's right.
Yeah, you were in favor, and he was against.
I know, but he was only bringing
Oh,
information.
information, yes. But the information that was brought.
Okay.
Okay. May I continue, sir?
Go right ahead.
Okay.
Thought there was supposed to be no comments from the back.
That's right, that's right. Anyway.
Doesn't help if the chairman ignores it.
Yeah, that's right. I understand having the development and all that.
But there's places for that.
I have no problem with the vineyard.
Right.
A vineyard is different than what they're talking about. You explain to me how you can grow crops and farm on a paved parking lot for 50+ cars. I don't think you can do it. So that isn't farming. That's not small farming, big farming, or any kind of farming. That's paving over a very limited amount of our farmland, taking away our farmland. I have a problem with that. I'm only one person, but I believe if they want to have the vineyard there and grow the crops, fine, go ahead with that. But the production of it And the winery, that should be in a core area. That's what those core areas are for. That's my take on it.
Okay, I'm on both sides of the fence too, but I am more likely to vote for it. I think we can address some of the neighborhood concerns with conditions. I do think having it there means you're not trucking grapes all over the place. It keeps more trucks off the road. It creates the value that allows the agricultural use to grow and expand. It's hard to build tax base. I think there are some concerns, but I think most of them we can address through conditions, or many of them at least. So
You know what
you're
I'm
smiling.
You know what I'm laughing about now?
What? Because I convinced you?
Because you're taking the business end of it,
I
make
know it,
money
I
and
know
go
it.
for it, and don't regard the people or the land.
Well, I
and
listen to the
I'm
people,
on
and
the
I think-
tree hugger side this time.
Well, wonders never cease.
Very out of character for both of us.
Yeah, and we've had major worldwide events lately too, so.
Let me add one more thing to
Sure.
mind. We have criteria to determine whether we can grant or deny, and I don't think we can deny based on these criteria.
Because of the
Oh,
core use.
yeah.
The
There's a lot of-
uses are very, I mean, this is
Would
a
that be helpful?
business.
Do you want to walk through the worksheet?
I think we should, because I'm kind of in the same side as Sue is.
Listen,
That-
we denied a zip line because a woman was afraid she wasn't going to hear her frogs anymore. So,
I don't think that was that high on our list of
pretty
reasoning.
Pretty much.
No, I think that
So,
was, there were
this is
different
a
reasons for that one.
lot different with the,
All right,
I
let's
think
walk-
it'd be more helpful for all four of us to
If we
go
Let's
through
walk
the
through the
items,
worksheet.
and by that end, we may have a much more comfortable answer.
Okay, so, number one, will the proposed project enhance or sustain property values in the area? And I can keep track on mine of what you answer. Although I suppose if you can.
Where I hang my head on that one is that across the street from it is a storage facility, another business, which I can't remember what it is, and used to be a garbage collection facility.
I was ice cream before that, so.
Okay, so clearly there are other uses in this area.
And
That-
a more industrial-looking use.
Yeah.
yeah, but that,
It's
well,
grandfathered in.
that's grandfathered in.
It
That
still
could be
is part of
debated
the
as,
character.
that could be
It's
debated as
grandfathered
not
in, but so
zoning,
is the rest of the houses around the
because it's
property.
grandfathered in.
So this
Anyway.
one is to enhance or sustain the value in the area.
I don't think it's gonna hurt the value.
I don't think it's gonna make it any better either.
No.
No,
I
if
think
it-
that's
anything, it's
debatable.
neutral.
Well, one of the options are
It'll
yes,
make
no,
their
or
property
I can
maybe
mark,
more
you're not
valuable.
sure
Yeah,
if
or
you're
not
not
apply.
Great, all right, so we'll
Okay.
do, is the proposed use similar to other uses in the area?
And it all depends what your definition of the word area is.
That's why I don't like this. This
It's-
is so.
It really should probably say neighborhood, because.
Yes, that'd be a more appropriate thing, because the reference that they used were 5 miles away, 2 miles away.
Yeah, and it doesn't fit in.
You know, by that definition, you can use one over in California.
Of course, of course.
Well, the vineyards do.
You know, the obvious answer to that is
The
no.
vineyard, I have no problem with the vineyard. You know, I've made that clear. I have no
I
problem
don't
with the
think
vineyard.
anybody has a problem with the vineyard.
That's fine. It's just the
That's not
production.
part of the proposed use, though. That's already
That's
there.
right. The production and the big parking lot, 118 seat wine
So-
tasting area. That's pretty big, guys. That's
Well, and I think if we were to grant this, I think we look at that size. And
So
see-
basically, I think we all are in the agreement that it does not
So
fit
no.
fit in with.
No.
with
Right,
all of
okay,
our-
and I need to back up, I forgot to do the yes or no questions about the plan. So is the proposed project consistent with Door County Comprehensive Plan? I think the answer to that is conflicting. It's not
I thought I
with the
read in here
future
it
land
says
use
no.
map, yeah.
It doesn't go with
Well,
the
it's
with the
not
plan.
Clear.
Right, there's two separate questions. Is the proposed project consistent with the Door County Comprehensive Plan, which there is one goal that would potentially support part of it, but the land use map is iffy.
Right.
As I read through this, I read that where it said no.
To some degree, that kind of question should really be as a 1 through 5 answer, really.
Okay.
Because like you say, part of it does and part of it
I'm gonna
doesn't.
circle it NA and no, or not NA, but just sort of. And then as the town plan, I guess, based on the town testimony, the assumption would be no.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry, so now we're back, so those
Number
other
two.
two questions were with public interest, whether it's gonna enhance or sustain property values, whether it's similar to other uses. The next group of questions has to do with health. Number 3, has provision been made for an approved sanitary waste disposal system? That will happen if it gets
Yeah,
approved.
we'll have to.
Has provision been made for a potable water supply? That will happen if it gets approved. And you can add conditions to any of these if you want
Right.
to as well. Has provision been made for solid waste disposal? I think they talked about composting and, no. Has provision been made to control noise, odor, and dust?
Well, it will be if we grant,
Yeah.
if it's granted, we'd put those stipulations in.
So like the gravel driveway would be one of the items that we have to be concerned about.
Do you want me to make notes of the potential concerns? So gravel driveway. What about, I suppose, like hours and for noise?
Hours of outdoor activity,
And screening.
the music that we've talked about in the past.
Okay. Then there's a group of questions related to safety. 7, has adequate provision been made for safe vehicular and pedestrian access?
It's a difficult one, no matter how you look at it, because it is on a, there's only so many things you can do.
From somebody that used to drive County P every day, that can be super easy, or
Yeah.
the next time it can be super
And 42
busy.
is no different.
Right.
Both of them will be, time will tell.
But that can be a very tough corner sometimes to deal with.
How hard is it to change speed limits on a county road?
Oh, on a
Well,
county, I
don't
don't
worry
use
about the
it's-
county
On
road.
a
If it's
county
the
road?
state road, it's gonna be,
Not as difficult as state,
The
you're not
state
gonna
is-
change it in the
well,
state.
they'll do a survey.
Not there, they won't change
Well,
it.
I'm
But
I'm
if the
certain-
access was on P?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the process is.
I don't know why it would matter if you're only 600 feet away from the intersection to start with. If you're doing 55 at that stage, you're going to start with.
He does have a point there, if you're turning off 42. You have to have a pretty powerful car to get up to the 55, stop and turn into the winery.
I do.
I don't think your car.
The problem that I have with
Oh, yeah.
this, and maybe it's left over from my days on Board of Adjustment, is at what point can you say philosophically, we're gonna shut the door on any more development because we don't want any more cars? I mean, how do you say to somebody that their property value, or they can't use their property because there are a lot of cars on?
I don't think
I think it would have more to do with
that.
safety. I mean, the question's under the category of safety, so.
Right, so,
It's not-
so my take on that is that we need to look at P. Is the driveway that they provide, the whatever, such that people can safely get on or off? What they do once they get to the intersection at 42,
Well,
I
let
don't know.
me read the next question then before we.
But you can't slow down.
The next one is, have provisions been made to ensure the proposed project will not adversely impact neighborhood traffic flow and congestion? I suppose that's maybe where you would worry about.
6 cars trying to get out on Highway 41 or 42,
42.
Or cars missing it and
turning
turning
around.
around. So there's 2 separate questions about traffic.
But both of those can be a similar issue no matter where you are on
Yeah.
42 or 57.
yeah,
There's
it
certain
would be
times
kind of
of
like
the
saying
year-
we can never have another business on.
Well, look at Woods up there, just north of Egg Harbor. That's just really bad news. You come around a
Carl.
corner, over a hill, and,
Carlsville is already 45 and it's troublesome.
yeah.
So then what are we answering?
Well, I think it could adversely affect neighborhood traffic. Whether, how, to what degree, I don't know that.
And again, it's a seasonal thing, it's not a year-round, always gonna be busy thing.
Well,
I don't know, when
I don't know.
school lets out.
No, I mean their traffic.
Oh,
They're,
yeah.
they're added traffic.
But I mean, that whole intersection there is
Yep.
gonna be dicey at times.
Yep.
Yeah.
And usually the reason, it's cool.
That's one of them.
Very popular road to take across.
Yeah.
Well, somebody make a motion, one way or the other.
We're not
We're-
done all the, let's
we
keep
got-
walking through. What do you want me to mark?
Well, let's
for
do
more
it
for the
faster,
two
because we've
traffic?
read these 100 times over the years. We know what they are.
Well, the proper surface water drainage, I'd say if we grant this, we
It will
need
be
to ask
addressed.
for
You
a
can add
soil,
that.
soil,
Yeah.
whatever, you know what I'm saying.
Emergency service. Okay, so then, will the proposed buildings contribute to visual harmony with existing buildings in the neighborhood, particularly as related to scale and design?
I think no.
Yeah, I just,
Yeah,
Well, the
but-
tricky part of that is
No,
across
no.
the street.
Exactly.
That's right.
It's a nice looking building.
oh, it is, it is.
Very nice.
Again, I have no problem with any of that. It's the location of that winery that it should be in a core area. Have the vineyard there, but yeah, how hard is it to go down P and have it located in either Sevastopol or Valmy, you know, in a core area for Sevastopol? And it's,
The zoning needs to be changed to take away the conditional use option for agricultural.
What am I marking for that one, for visual harmony?
Which number are you on?
Visual harmony, number 11.
I don't know, I think that there's such a difference among the buildings that are there, it's,
Exactly.
I don't know how big the buildings are that are across the street. I mean, I know that's one of the things that town testified that was a concern to them, but I don't know.
The ones across the street are fairly stand out. The difference is this building's gonna go on top of a hill and it's gonna make it stand out also.
And there, yeah, it's a beautiful design, but I just don't think it's in the right place.
All right, I'm marking sort of maybe and no on that, so.
okay, let's go to 12. Will the proposed project protect against excessive exterior lighting, glare, or spillover into neighboring properties?
That you guys
Yes,
can
it
catch
will,
up.
because we'd make
We
that,
always require
we'd
that.
always require that.
And then the last one is.
Will the proposed project protect the natural character of the area and retain natural vegetation and topography? Well, can't build a building that size in a 50 space parking lot by maintaining the natural vegetation and topography. So, now they will keep, the rest of it is farmland, so that's yes to that, but the section where the parking lot and the building, that, the answer is no. So, that's why I don't like these.
All right, I'd
You
put maybe on that.
can, you can use the question to go both ways.
the problem is that's what's in the zoning ordinance, so that's,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
don't have a
Actually,
choice.
yeah.
I'm still looking for a motion.
Well, I'll make it, and then we'll see if it gets defeated.
What are you making?
I
What is
move
motion?
we grant it, subject to many conditions. But I truly am on the fence here, so
Is
I
there
don't
a
know.
second to that?
We'll
And
see
for
where
the
it goes.
sake of discussion, I will second that, not necessarily in favor of it or against it.
We should decide on the conditions before we vote.
Yeah.
That might help.
And the scope of it. Now, as we asked the questions, we weren't specific, but we asked, could they live with a smaller? Now, I understand the area they need to produce it, I would think that has to stay.
Well, and they hope to increase
Right.
the production.
So we can't arbitrarily say, well, make that small. They need that space.
And I don't think we have a problem with the agricultural part.
No, no.
Well, let me talk about the tasting seats. I thought I heard one of the gentlemen say that perhaps they could live with 60 seats as opposed to 118. That sounds better to me.
I
But
don't remember.
I also remember the answer to that question being, it's not gonna change the size of the building.
That's true.
Oh.
But it's less bodies coming in, well,
No, it
no,
doesn't
not
really.
necessarily.
All
not
it does is,
necessarily.
the only thing that does change, and that's a scale that does exist, is it changes the size of the parking lot.
Well, that's true.
Which, you know, what is the ratio? One seat gets, how many seats to a parking lot?
It's one parking space per 200 square feet of retail area, I think is how we
Also,
calculated it.
I thought it was tied to number of,
Well, since it's a mixture of sales and seats, it's one space per 3 seats, or by the square footage, whichever one comes out.
I think we would need to
so which
require
one
screening.
overrides here?
On both
Is-
sides.
Oh, absolutely.
Which one overrides for parking lot space?
Well, whichever
This
one
job.
comes out to the greater
And
number
on
is
this,
the one.
on this job, which one does?
I have to calculate on that. Probably by the
Okay.
square footage.
Get the big plan so I can see.
So let's hit the easy ones, then we're gonna require screening.
And I would like to suggest on both sides, on Kathy Marshall's side as well as the other side.
I think it's reasonable to allow owners to have privacy. They're gonna be next to a bunch of neighborhood, and a bunch of visitors constantly coming and going.
And the screening on the side of the corner might include something that allows the chickens to stay in their yard and not have to be
They made a comment
hit by
to
a
the
car
fact
or whatever.
that they would supply a fence that would handle that.
Okay, so
situation.
visual screening approved by the land use department. Haven't we done that in the past? So that they can work out.
Typically, the best thing for you to do is to either pick whether you want it to be vegetation or a fence. When you've left it up to the applicants to work out with the neighbors, it sometimes gets messy, especially since you'd be talking about 3
Okay,
neighbors on
so
the south.
vegetative screening. Yeah, we ever put a percentage or something, you know?
We have standards as far as like trees per, evergreens and 1 every 10 feet.
The typical is 1 evergreen every 10 feet.
So we're looking at 5-10 years before it has a visual screen.
Yeah,
And there's
they're
2
only-
feet of 2 feet of height at time of planting, able to hit
So
measure height.
It's a long,
15.
that kind of screening is a long-term result.
That doesn't keep chickens in the yard.
No.
Can't you train them?
That's a different issue.
Well,
Buy
but
some
it's one we
invisible
should.
chicken collars
Right.
and,
For both sides.
Yeah.
Nuisance issue. But not everybody likes a wood or.
Well,
a
what
metal
else?
fence.
What else?
Well, on page 651, or the list of, if you were to consider granting conditions that staff had thought of. So hours,
Yeah, it's 51, right?
they had talked about being open from 10 to 6 for the public, but that 8 to 8 would be fine for other activities or staff or deliveries.
Outside operations, though, we might want to set a window for that. They were saying that it had some outside processing operations.
Right, I think that was included in the 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock.
Stormwater plan you have on there too.
That would be triggered by the
It's,
scope of the project.
Well, but it isn't triggered,
It's
is the
not
problem.
clear.
It's smaller than what the state requires, right? So it has to be triggered by us if we want it.
Right, if we want county staff to review it, we have to put it as a condition. Based on what we have here, it's close, but we don't know the size of the driveway. It's not shown on the plans, so I don't know if it for sure will trigger that.
Well, if the driveway is gravel, it wouldn't make any difference because that's
I don't know if the
pervious
state looks
surface.
at that as a disturbed area or not.
What rule are you referring to? The construction rule or the
I think it's a construction
I think it's a
rule.
construction.
Everything you're saying is worded as if it's the construction rule. That's a completely different thing. If the building's close to an acre, then it's gonna include the driveway. It's gonna include the land around it. And they'll be
Okay.
required to put in, to do that for a commercial building. I'm talking about the stormwater plan we would typically require for the operation of a
Right.
building.
Right.
That's what I wanna see in our condition.
I've added that.
Anything else?
I'm still
What
looking
else
at
we
the
talked
list.
about?
You've got the tasting room,
Um,
you've talked about access from,
What have we done before with amplified music?
We've asked it to be
well,
turned
if you're
off
gonna,
at-
if you're gonna limit the access to the public from 10 till 6, then that would be.
That's true. That's a
yeah,
good
it-
point. Okay.
Well, I also, they talked about not making any food there. What about catering an event there?
They're not asking for that, so they wouldn't be getting it.
Just saying, would they be allowed to do that?
You mean like if somebody was gonna have a wedding or
So,
something?
yeah.
Catering food in for the winery trip around the Door County.
That's, they could do temporary use, otherwise I think believe it's assembly hall, and then I don't know that.
So that takes separate approval, that's fine.
Well, what we've been doing in recent years, when somebody wants to do something more than 10 days out of the year, is we run it through as an assembly hall. So that's what Sue's looking at.
But they have to come in for that. You can't just do it, right?
I don't know.
10
Right.
days you can.
The 10 days a year they can.
Is that allowed under that?
Well, we have,
Permit
in the
that they're
ordinance,
asking
there's the
for?
temporary use provision where anybody can do pretty much anything on any lot for up to 10 days out of the year.
Oh,
But if they wanted to do an assembly hall,
As a routine activity is what Mark, I think, would be referring to.
Right, exactly.
oh, you know what? I think Sue's right. I don't think they can do an assembly hall here. Let us look that up. But so I think of the list of things that were in the staff report, I think the tasting room is the one that you haven't addressed. It didn't sound like they thought there was going to be any blasting with regard to the construction.
There
Think so?
probably will be.
Okay.
So we do need to address the blasting to be outside of certain hours.
Okay, well, while Sue's looking up the assembly hall thing, we can.
What do you suggest?
Whatever we've done in the past for job site blasting.
listen, well, okay, said it. I'm looking at it from, they're not gonna blast at 2 o'clock in the morning to get a job done. They're gonna be doing
We
it.
have historically put blasting hours on projects.
I understand,
that are sitting
but you know what
around.
I'm saying.
Yes, I do. But they have blasted at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So you don't want
People have.
us to put hours down for this?
We should put blasting hours in, because I'm pretty sure that hill's gonna be a chunk of rock.
Okay. So, if you said hours, I missed one, sorry.
So whatever hours we typically used in the past. Last one I can think of is that subdivision we did, we read that over on, off of 42 by Gibraltar. They came in, that
I can't remember the time.
continuation.
I think what people, I don't remember
Okay,
what
so let's
hours
say
we
7
picked.
o'clock to 7 o'clock.
Okay.
About 9 o'clock.
There you go. I threw a number out and got it
Yeah,
faced.
yeah.
9 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And I know we've had discussions previously, but I can't remember what we've done as far as whether they notify neighbors.
They have to follow
Yes, I
neighborhood
would-
notifications anyways.
I think that's.
They are required to follow
Okay, so
that.
then,
I don't remember.
all right, so we'll just do the hours.
As for the assembly hall allowances, it is only allowed in GA with a conditional use. However, the building that is utilized has to predate zoning, so they wouldn't qualify.
Okay,
So they would only be
couldn't
able
do
to
that
do
anyway.
like 10.
Temporary use. And then I have parking. Did someone have questions on how much
Well,
parking was provided for each?
I
Yeah.
threw out the changing of the number of tasting seats, but I don't have a sense of what the rest of you thought about that.
So the
idea.
question was the number of parking lots, seats, positions are based on the square footage or the number of seats,
118.
whichever was larger, I think you said.
Based on the seats. So they have shown 118 seats, they're providing 39 spaces.
How many?
39 spaces, parking spaces are required for the 118
Oh.
wine tasting seats.
Because I thought I counted and it was more like
It's-
50 in the
Right, because there's,
parking lot.
17 spaces are provided for 15 employees. 1 space is provided for the indoor display, farm market display, and then 1 space is provided for the outdoor display. So a total of 58 spaces are required per this plan.
So realistically, if we tried to reduce the number of seats, we're really not gonna change the number of parking spots out
Maybe
out back
4
here.
or 5.
Is that right? We would only be changing it by 4 or 5. If we said 60 tasting seats, how much would we
60
change the
divided
parking
by
lot?
3.
20 instead.
Yeah.
20. But then that's probably where the area kicks in and overrides that.
I don't know.
Yeah, because we don't, that's, you're right. It's an either or. We either do it by the seats or by the
So how
square
many
footage.
seats would
because
they
It
otherwise
is a
you
big
can't screen.
volume. I mean, 118 seats does take up a big volume, so.
Right, but she's saying if they left the building the same size and just say less seats, we
Well,
still
and
have to
he-
provide
He answered
close to
that
the
they
same
would
amount of
leave the
parking.
building the same size. He didn't say
And
that.
you're right, though, because it's an either or. It's not like if a bar, and I'm not saying they're a bar, but if somebody was saying, I'm gonna do a restaurant with no seats, we wouldn't say, okay, you don't have to have any parking.
We have 2 different dimensions that you work with. Cutting the seats in half is not gonna result, not gonna change that issue either. So we've answered all the conditions on the list, right?
You mean as far as the staff report or the
Just, right.
the worksheet?
Okay, we got your,
Our conditions, we've answered all of our conditions, right?
All the ones that
As you say.
We've got a completion date of 2 years out, that's gonna be standard anyway because of the way the zoning ordinance is set
Yep.
up. You've got hours, tasting room, I'm not
And
exactly
can you
sure what you
give us the
decided
numbers
there.
that we've done?
For the hours?
Just go to each one of the items, give us the values that we've filled in, that you have written down.
Completion date is gonna be 2 years from the date of issuance, which will end up being Monday. The hours of operation open to the public, we had 10 to 6. Just general hours of operation would be 8 to 8. Tasting room, I'm not clear if you've decided that you wanna change anything.
Doesn't sound like it.
As far as whether or not the access is limited to County Trunk Highway P,
Well, that would
I
be
mean, that's
based
the way
on-
the site plan's shown.
So in
but-
other words, that would should actually say is per site plan,
Okay.
right?
And then building codes, lighting, reiteration that you can't have food heated, cooked, prepared, or made to order. Parking area landscaping, obviously, they need to comply with that. And then blasting at the hours of 9 to 7. And then the additional things that you've talked about are requiring a stormwater plan from soil and water. And I have vegetative, but with a question mark, screening for the north and south. The borders of those, the lots.
Along residential lots.
Well, because you talked about some people were talking about fencing, some people were talking about vegetative screening. So
I think the chickens were on the south.
Yes, the one on the south.
So that's a fence.
I don't know. I don't know.
So,
if they
so
finished
what's left
talking
here
about
is, I was saying vegetative screening. Do you want to put something else up there for screening? If we approve it.
Well, if our concern is to help keep kids in yards, keep chickens in yards, protect so that people don't walk in, we need something that's fairly solid. So, I don't know, my guess, I guess, is that it'd be a fence at least along the driveway. I don't know. On the other side, it could be vegetative, because that's for visual.
Well, they were, the vineyard, I'm just saying this because I'm against the party, but the vineyard people said they don't mind, they don't want the chickens in there, she doesn't want the
Yeah.
chickens to get out.
Well, we need something that'll-
Fence, right.
I thought they said they would be willing to put that up there.
Correct.
Yes, they did.
So,
I meant on the northern side,
Yeah.
maybe, that could be vegetative, on Kathy Marshall's side.
okay, anything else? Not,
I
so
can't think of anything
Okay.
offhand.
So I'm gonna ask
All right.
this, I do need to ask them a question.
Go ahead.
If this is a 2-2, what happens?
It fails.
It fails.
Okay, I wanna make sure everybody in the audience knew that.
Yep.
All right. I am really torn on this one. We have a motion and a second. I gotta tell you, I'm just not gonna support it. I just really believe that building should be in a core area and
They gotta
Vineyard
go
is
along
fine.
with the town too.
and to go along with the town. So anyway,
Can I say one more thing about the town? You might notice that the vote was split.
yes.
among
Oh,
the
yes.
town
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
It was 3-2. I understand. I understand. So all those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
people. Aye.
Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
So it fails.
So it fails. There's no need to make another vote because.
No, because it fails.
Because it fails anyway. So, but this isn't the end of it. We have decided no for the reasons we talked about. But it says right on here that, and I think I'll read that if, read it again, I know, I just want to read it. These decisions are normally final, but may be appealed to the Door County Board of Adjustment. So,
Within 30 days.
well, whatever, it doesn't
It's
say that on my
within 30
sheet.
days.
But that's where it's at now. And I'm sorry that we leave you hanging on a 2-2 vote, but
It is what it is.
it is what it is.
That's also why I wanted to
It's-
walk through all the pieces.
I know,
because
I know.
The other thing we heard in the discussion was that there might be some compromise if a new proposal came in and met with the town board and whoever,
Right.
that there might be some room for adjustments that would make it more palatable.
Right, but
throw
then
that out there.
in the presentation.
Can I elaborate on that
No,
a little
no.
bit, just so everybody in the audience?
Go
So
ahead.
as Supervisor Fisher stated, that there is an appeal period that starts 30 days after the decision letter goes out, which will be Monday. But then the other option is that if a new application is turned in, then that's different. I mean, a new application that's substantially different, then they can go ahead and have another hearing as soon as we can get it scheduled.
So if they did, if the winery wants to change and meet the concerns of the town, and they get together with the town, and they say, yeah, we'll do all that, then it would come back for another hearing.
Would be a new application.
Right, I mean, they could do a couple of things. They could either, on their own, just come up with a new plan and then turn it into us, and we'll go through the whole process again, or if they wanted to meet with the town, and the town wanted to meet with them, they could do that first, and then turn in revised plans. It's kind of up to them.
All right.
And is there a 6-month window of some sort?
The 6-month window is only if they're gonna turn in essentially the same application. So, yeah, if they wanted to turn it around tomorrow and submit the exact same application, it would come to you first for you to decide whether there's enough new evidence to make you maybe change your mind. But generally, yeah.
And I wanted to mention that because even if they come to an agreement with the landowners and the town, it may not still be substantially different enough for us to review it.
Well, if there's
in less than 6
new
months.
evidence that they've come up with conditions between the applicant and the town that satisfy the neighbors and everybody feels good about it, even if it's basically the same, then that would be enough new evidence that would maybe sway your vote,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. All right.
And by the way, I do agree that for a number of your topics, your concerns about where it is and so forth.
As I did with your concerns. Anyway, enough. We're done. We voted on it, and that's the way it is. So, all that being said, I think I goofed up on correspondence. You had something in there for the town of Gibraltar?
Oh, no, actually what I'm doing is I'm attaching that to the minutes from last time.
Last time.
Yes. I
Oh,
should have had that
that's-
as a heading.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just because you guys did talk about it a little,
Yes.
I didn't have it as part of the last packet. I wanted to make sure that it was in there.
All right, then let's go to meeting schedule.
Leo's leaving?
We do have hearings, correct, for November 2nd?
I have November 2nd down
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
at
so
2
we've got.
2 p.m.
We do have hearings for November
Took too long.
2nd. We
Let's
do-
see you,
Actually,
boss.
no, let me correct that. We do not.
We do.
We do not
we don't
need
have
it
any
on the
hearings?
2nd?
Wait,
We're not meeting on the 16th, though.
Linda, you, by the way, hello. You didn't have
Hello.
anything to add to this?
I couldn't, I had to go teach a class at the Y, so.
Okay. All right. This was a tough one.
I could have added something.
We'll let
Yeah.
Sue ponder for a minute. We are definitely not having a meeting on November 16th, because at the last meeting, we discussed that Supervisor Kohout was not
Right.
going to be here, and
That's no
we're not
meeting.
sure
We don't know
the
where
status of
John is.
Well,
Supervisor
now
Kohout.
maybe I can get my vacation.
So, yeah, so December 7th, we will have hearings, because there are things floating around, but I think.
Yeah, and last week Friday, I was supposed to do the notice, but the one case that was ready said they could not be at that meeting.
So.
Let's for now keep a placeholder on
Keep a
November
placeholder.
2nd. I will
Okay.
look and see whether there's enough discussion topics that we need to do it, but I'll let you know by tomorrow.
Well, there's also, I'm meeting with surgeons on Halloween about my neck,
So-
so.
I'll let you know tomorrow whether or not we have anything that's gonna be ready to go, or
So
that we have to talk about
RPC
November
for
2nd.
Thursday the 7th at 2 p.m.
On December, yes, we will definitely meet then.
Okay, 2
Yeah,
p.m.
Because we went on the 16th.
So no on the 16th, yes on the 7th, I'll let you know tomorrow, no tomorrow about November 2nd.
All right. All right, geez, meeting code, I'm running out of dates, it's 10:19 today?
Yep.
So what is that?
019?
Oh, wait a minute, Sue just reminded me, we do need to meet on November 2nd. It might be very short, but we need to meet on November 2nd because we got the results of our audit back from FEMA and the DNR of our floodplain program, and we need a new ordinance, and we got to adopt it by February 1st.
Yay!
So we will, okay, let's go back. November 2nd, yes.
Yes.
November 16th, no. December 7th, yes.
Okay.
Meeting, sorry.
You said
Uh,
per diem code
019 will be just fine,
Can't do
Mark.
that.
Sure you can.
Not on mine.
Oh, you're right.
You can't do 019?
No, it unfortunately it's locked up to look like a number, so it
So
won't accept
190.
So 190? Is that what you
Yeah, I don't have that anywhere else here. Sure, 190.
It's not that that it can't be repeated. Money. 3, 4.
190. What,
Four.
when did we start? We
Three and
started
a
at
half.
2.
2.
Three
At
and a
3 and a
half.
half.
So that's 112.50.
112.50.
Oh, wait, have you guys?
What is
just
that?
Made a motion to adjourn.
336.
We didn't have one yet.
Yeah, we don't get paid for that.
But I don't have an adjournment motion.
I make
Oh,
a
no,
motion to
but just
adjourn.
wait, we got that, we got the one, am I on the right? Yep, 190 for the code.
Yep.
3.5 hours. That's everything, 190. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, we're adjourned. Are we off the camera?